There were a total of 104 lottery draws, 21 times in total, which was not bad. 2 of the newly appearing cleaning cards were drawn, and the rest were items that had appeared before. 6 donuts, 6 senbei, 11 loyalty cards, 6 burst charms, 2 double fear cards, and 2 clean cards. This is the item that Sakazuki got in the current lottery draw. The fear value of more than 10,000 points still played a big role, and he won many prizes. Although these items did not seem to be very effective, he did not feel that it was a pity at all. I always think that there must be good things in the system lottery center. It is undeniable that as the number of draws increases, the probability of new items increases, so he is not a pity at all. On the contrary, he is a little eager to try, but there is no more fear value. After returning to naval headquarters from Ohara, Sakazuki and others went to the office where Sengoku was located. Because this matter was the buster call issued by Sengoku, it was natural to report it to him after it was over. Sakazuki and the others were accompanied by CP9's Spandane, but he was far away from Sakazuki and the others, and he didn't want to come close at once. Sengoku Admiral. After entering Sengoku's office, everyone gave their phone worms to Sengoku, and then all 5 Sakazuki sat down on the sofa. Only Spandane stood there unhappy. Sengoku put away the phone worm. Instead of going to Spandane first, he asked Sakazuki. Sakazuki, I have received a report about the specific process. Both Kuzan Vice Admiral and Huashaoshan Vice Admiral complained that you shelled the refuge ship. You how to explain. Although Sakazuki is the chief commander of this buster call military operation, it is impossible for Sengoku to read his report alone. Naturally, the reports of the others must also be read, especially Kuzan and Huashaoshan both published in their reports. In his own opinion, he complained that Sakazuki indiscriminately killed the innocent and shelled the refuge ship. Sakazuki replied very calmly. I have a reason to do this. Scholars on Ohara Island already know a little history of the 100 years of blank. If scholars infiltrate the refuge ship, this information will inevitably be spread. At that time, it will have a great impact on the world, so for the sake of the peace of the world, I must make this decision, and it is also directly instructed by 5 elders, I just acted on orders. At this time, Spandane suddenly said, this is indeed a direct order from 5 elders. The scholars of Ohara know too many secrets. Sengoku nodded. In fact, he didn't mean to blame Sakazuki for this incident. After all, this time he and Sora decided to send Sakazuki out together. They were already prepared, and the incident this time was indeed very serious. He also knew Bian's order. It's just that Kuzan and Huashaoshan both filed a complaint against Sakazuki. Of course, he also had to mention it in public. This incident is serious, so I don't care about your behavior. But if you ignore the safety of civilians next time and kill innocent people at will, don't blame me for punishing you severely. Sengoku warned Sakazuki. Understand. Sakazuki didn't take Sengoku's threats seriously, and not every time someone complained to him. Do you have anything else? Sengoku asked Spandane. Spandane said immediately. Your marine's actions were really messy. I had already caught the person 5 elders wanted me to arrest, but it was because your people fired indiscriminately. Not only did I fail to catch anyone, and he was almost injured by mistake. Sengoku remained unmoved by Spandane's complaint, and continued to ask, what else? In any case, Sakazuki and the others are from the naval headquarters, they are his subordinates, he can reprimand, but Spandane is not qualified to say anything, so he did not take his words to heart. Spandane added, by the way, although everyone on Ohara Island was killed this time, there was still a slippery fish, a kid named Robin. She seemed to be an archaeologist too, able to read historical texts. Upon hearing this, Sengoku's face suddenly changed. He hurriedly picked up a photo from the table and asked, but this is what you said. This time the buster call is launched, and the biggest goal is the archaeologists. Either catch them all or kill them all. Now that there is a fish that slipped through the net, it means that the mission this time has not achieved the expected results. Spandane took a look at the photo and immediately said, yes, this kid, where did you find her? A marine soldier in the room replied, according to the information you provided, we found her traces on an island north of Ohara, but we did not catch her with the help of a suspicious person. It turned out that when he returned to naval headquarters, he had already told Sengoku about this situation. Sengoku also arranged for someone to search for it, but he didn't get any results. Spanda said unwillingly, in the last time, I saw the kid escape in a small boat alone. I wanted to chase after him, but at that time the rudder seemed to be frozen and couldn't move at all. I guess it was what your rebel Saul did before his death. When Kuzan heard this, a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Although he is a highly regarded Marine Vice Admiral, he must be held accountable for letting go of the archaeologists if they are known to others. Also, during the bombardment of Ohara, Sakazuki Vice Admiral and Kuzan Vice Admiral didn't know why they fought. Spandane said at the end, quite unkind. No one told Sengoku about this matter. Because few people knew that Sakazuki and Kuzan had a fight, Daubman and others would naturally not tell Sengoku about this matter, so Sengoku was very satisfied after hearing what Spandane said. Surprised. You too? Why? Sengoku stared at Sakazuki and Kuzan and asked. Kuzan put on sunglasses and glanced at Sakazuki unconsciously. At this time, if Sakazuki put all the responsibility on him, he really couldn't refute it. However, Sakazuki snorted very disdainfully, and said, "Some people are too self-righteous, standing on the highest point of the so-called justice, criticizing my actions. In fact, they are too hypocritical in the end, huh?" Hearing Sakazuki's words, Kuzan immediately understood what he meant. He was a little grateful, but he said in the same cold voice, "For my own benefit, to kill innocent people indiscriminately, I disdain to be with such a person." The feud between Sakazuki and Kuzan has long been an open secret at naval headquarters. What's more, it was proposed by CP9 Spandane, so even if Sengoku had any ideas, he would not really say it in person. After coming out of Sengoku's office, Sakazuki sighed. Just now, Sengoku had given an order from Sora to lift his restricted foot. Without a mission, he can freely enter and exit Marineford. After returning to the headquarters, the Ghost Spider has taken the soldiers under his command to repair, leaving only Lucas waiting for him. Lucas immediately greeted Sakazuki when he saw Sakazuki come out. Sakazuki said, Go to school and see Lasana." Speaking of Lasana, he rarely showed a trace of gentleness. He has been in this world for more than 2 years. In fact, he has always felt a sense of incompatibility. Therefore, he treats others coldly. Lasana, the little girl he saved, was able to warm him. Since Lasana was brought back to naval headquarters by him, she was too young to join Marine, so Sakazuki sent her to the Junior Military Academy in the headquarters. The Juvenile Military Academy basically collects the children of Marine soldiers to train juveniles. They specialize in admitting juveniles between the ages of 8 and 16. They are educated by special officers, and the conditions and treatment are very good. The school was in the headquarters. Sakazuki took Lucas and quickly arrived at the school. When passing by, the soldiers saluted Sakazuki respectfully when they saw Sakazuki. Although Lasana is his disciple, it is actually similar to his adopted daughter, but he usually spends most of his time practicing and training, so the task of picking up Lasana is done by the most trusted soldier, such as Lucas and so on. This is also the first time he has personally picked Lasana from school. "I haven't seen you for so long, I don't know if the little girl has grown taller. I went to Ohara for more than 20 days back and forth, and Sakazuki really missed Lasana, who had never been away for so long." It was still the afternoon, and the school was not over yet. Sakazuki, led by Lucas, walked towards Lasana's class. After arriving in the class, they found no one. Lucas found out after inquiring. There was no class in the afternoon. The students were free to move around. Everyone was training and playing in the school's large square, so they went to the square again. Although it is only a junior military school, the scale of this school is really not bad, especially the playground, which is very spacious, and there are countless young people gathered in the large square, swaying youth. Such a lively scene also made Sakazuki smile and glance around, but the next moment, his expression instantly changed and his face became extremely ugly. On one side of the playground, dozens of teenagers gathered together, very lively, but what they did made Sakazuki's expression extremely ugly and angry. "Ugly monsters, monsters, you monsters, ugly monsters, monsters." A group of teenagers gathered together, pointing at a girl in the middle, yelling while pointing, and there were a few teenagers on the edge holding 2 teenagers, one male and one female. The teenage girl seemed to be with the girl being scolded, desperately struggling to pass, but was held down by more people. The girl surrounded by the teenagers was about 10 years old. Although she was surrounded, her face was expressionless. Upon closer inspection, the girl has long black hair and white skin. She is very delicate, but it is a pity that there was a finger-long scar on that pink jade cheek, which made her look and feel different. There is a scar on a beautiful face. What a pity, especially for these young people who have not grown up. It is precisely because of this scar that the surrounding teenagers are scolded. She is ugly. The girl who was being scolded by the crowd was always expressionless. Even if the scolding was very unpleasant, she always gritted her teeth and said nothing. Only when she approached, she would realize that, in fact, Her eyes were filled with tears. It just didn't flow out. "You monster, ugly, I feel sick when I see you, get out of here." A teenager in the crowd felt that just cursing was not enough, so he picked up a small stone on the ground and smashed it at the girl. The little stone accurately hit the girl's forehead, but what was shocking was that after hitting the girl's forehead, the little stone passed through her head. A small white snowflake hole appeared in the girl's head, but soon it went again. It was restored to its original state. On the other hand, after the little stone passed through the girl's head, it fell on the ground behind it, giving the impression that the little stone did not touch the girl and flew past at a normal speed. Monster. It really is a monster. You monster, go to death. After seeing this scene, the surrounding teenagers all showed horror. Although it is not the first time they have seen this situation, they are still scared by this strange scene. For teenagers of their age, this is a very terrible thing. Monster, monster. Sakazuki outside the playground watched this scene, clasping his fists tightly together, and his anger could not help but burst out. Lucas. Lucas shuddered and almost couldn't help kneeling. He had never seen Sakazuki so furious before, having been with Sakazuki for so long. Fear score from Lucas. +437. Even if Sakazuki's anger was not against him, Lucas also provided a lot of fear points at once. Yes. Lucas replied, standing straight. Sakazuki said coldly, "Go and call me the principal and teacher of the school." Knowing that Sakazuki was really angry, Lucas didn't hesitate at all, and immediately responded, "Yes." This school is only a military academy for training young people. It can be regarded as a transitional military school. Therefore, even if it is the principal of the school, the military rank is just Rear Admiral. Although Sakazuki is not his direct supervisor, it is still impossible to call him over in this situation. Any questions? So Lucas went straight to call someone. Although his heart was extremely angry, Sakazuki did not lose his mind. Although this group of teenagers made a lot of trouble, they are still only 12 or 13-year-olds. He is a naval headquarters vice admiral. If he stepped forward to stop him, it would not be consistent. Identity will be said to bully the small. Secondly, he was also afraid that he could not control his emotions. If he really started, the situation would be extremely serious, so he could only endure the rage and wait for the school's leaders to come over. Monster, you monster, get out of here. The teenagers around Lisana hit her with something one after another, but it was the same as before, and after the hit, they passed through Lisana's body again, without causing him any harm. The more I watched, the more anger in Sakazuki's heart, but on the contrary, he was getting calmer and calmer on the surface. He has become more able to control his emotions, although he can't do Taishan collapse and keep his face unchanged, but nor will it easily reveal one's own psychological activities. Lucas's speed is very fast, only 10 minutes, he brought several people to Sakazuki's front. Headquarters Rear Admiral Chris, I have met Sakazuki Vice Admiral. The head was a 40-year-old Marine Rear Admiral. He was calm and serious. At first glance, he knew that he was a very calm and experienced soldier. Even facing Sakazuki, who was younger than himself, he showed sufficient respect. Unlike ordinary veterans, he is now the principal of the military academy, which means he has retreated to the second line. He is naturally incomparable with Vice Admiral, who is the master of Sakazuki. Although as an educational institution, he has also heard about Sakazuki, but no matter how Sakazuki is demoted, he has more potential than the average Vice Admiral. He still has this vision. After Chris Rear Admiral, there are 4 Marine officers who also salute Sakazuki very respectfully, with a much lower attitude than Chris. Chris Rear Admiral. Reaching out without hitting the smiley, Sakazuki also nodded at Chris Rear Admiral, then pointed to the playground with a grim expression, and asked, "I want to know, what is going on?" In fact, Chris and others are also very puzzled. As a military school principal who has retired to the second line, especially a military school that educates young people, he is actually very idle. Although there are thousands of people in the school, there are also many teachers. Basically, there are many teachers. He asked too many things. Just now Lucas suddenly came to him and said that he was ordered by Sakazuki to see him immediately. This shocked him. In the naval headquarters today, who does not know, Sakazuki is definitely the most difficult to deal with. One of the higher-ups has now been reactivated, so he didn't have the slightest dissatisfaction and rushed over as quickly as possible. I thought Sakazuki was looking for himself for something else, but I didn't expect Sakazuki to point to the playground. He looked towards the playground, and then he was stunned. The fact that he was able to reach his current position indicated that he was a smart person, so he reacted immediately. Come over. Sakazuki Vice Admiral, who is that girl? Chris asked nervously. Sakazuki's eyes were cold, and she said solemnly, I brought her back 2 years ago. She is my disciple, and it can be said to be the same as my daughter. Hiss. Chris and the teachers behind him were shocked. They didn't understand what it meant. Sakazuki's disciples were bullied by so many people in their school. This was not a big deal, but Sakazuki saw it with his own eyes. It can be big or small, so of course they are nervous. Sakazuki said coldly. Looking at their practice, it shouldn't be once or twice. I want to know what's going on. Can you call their teacher over? Chris answered without hesitation, no problem. Then he ordered the person behind him to find the teacher in this class immediately. Soon, a teacher in his 30s was brought over. Because he was a military academy, every teacher had a military rank. The teacher who was brought was a Marine sergeant, barely a small officer. This is Sakazuki, Vice Admiral, he has something to ask you. Chris said directly without giving this person a chance to breathe. When called over inexplicably, the sergeant was already nervous, but now that he heard that it was Vice Admiral's question, he became even more nervous. He stammered and asked, Middle, Master Vice Admiral. You brought the students there, right? Sakazuki asked, pointing to the playground. He didn't understand what was going on, but after taking a look, he nodded and said, yes. Sakazuki asked again. I want to know what's going on. Why is that little girl bullied by so many people, but no one cares about it? This sergeant obviously did not react as quickly as Chris. He didn't notice Sakazuki's strangeness and said cautiously, that little girl, her name is Lasana. The students bullied her because she was incompatible with the classmates. And it's really a monster, others can't hit her at all. You, as a teacher, don't care about this kind of thing? Sakazuki asked lightly. The sergeant replied. This is the student's own business. Our teacher does not need to intervene, and she is indeed very strange. Everyone can't hit her, and there is no possibility of hurting her. There is no need to manage. Chris on the side can't wait to kick this idiot away. How did this guy become a teacher? Is his ability to detect words and colors so bad? The Vice Admiral, who is a dignified man, would take care of this kind of thing for no reason? Especially when I heard the sergeant talking about Lasana, he didn't care about his appearance. He almost had the heart to kill him, but when Sakazuki was in front of him, he didn't dare to move at all, he could only scold it. Fart, you are a teacher, and you don't care about this kind of thing, you. Well, Chris Rear Admiral, let me take care of this matter, how? Sakazuki stopped Chris from scolding and asked him lightly. Chris hesitated for a moment. He is not Sakazuki's subordinate, so Sakazuki is not qualified to order him, but this matter involves Lasana. He nodded and said, no problem, this is the negligence of our school, everything it's all handled by you. At this time, the sergeant teacher finally noticed something was wrong, but he hadn't thought of the reason before Sakazuki spoke. Lasana is my disciple, which is equivalent to my daughter. I didn't care about things in school, but seeing her being bullied so much, I, as a parent, can't be seen as missing. This teacher, I just want to ask one question. What is it that makes you indifferent to such a thing? You only have one chance to answer. I want to listen to the truth. So many people bullied Lasana in public. If there was no problem, he wouldn't believe it, and the teacher's attitude made him very angry. This bastard actually thought Lasana was a monster. It is what he can't tolerate most. Boom. The sergeant teacher's legs weakened and his whole body collapsed on the ground. He was really frightened. Lasana was actually a disciple of Vice Admiral Sakazuki. He couldn't help thinking of what he had just said, shaking all over. Because. Under Sakazuki's cold gaze, the sergeant teacher stammered and didn't know how to answer. Say it. Chris shouted eagerly. He was anxious to put aside his responsibility, so he was immediately anxious when he saw this man hesitate. Arubik, it's Arubik Rear Admiral, the student who led the bullying of Miss Lasana. His father is Arubik Rear Admiral. The sergeant teacher shouted and said his answer. Arubik? Sakazuki raised his brows. He was not familiar with this person. But Chris reacted and explained. Arubik Rear Admiral is a young Rear Admiral who has just been transferred from the Marine branch to the headquarters a year ago. It is said that he is in the relationship of Peluzalino Vice Admiral. As the principal of the headquarters' youth military academy, he naturally needs to have enough knowledge about the students in his school, especially those with unusual identities. The children of Rear Admiral in the headquarters are naturally regarded as more important. Hee. Just one headquarters Rear Admiral can let you just let it go. Your bottom line is really low enough. Sakazuki sneered. The sergeant teacher is desperate. He is indeed a force, but if he knew that Lasana was related to Sakazuki, he would not sit idly by when he killed him. Although Urubuki is Rear Admiral, he is better than Sakazuki. Get up, it's not on the same level at all. I don't want to talk nonsense with these people, Sakazuki said directly. I don't make it difficult for you. Go and call Urubuki and the parents of the other students who bullied Lasana. This matter is up to us. Talk. Chris deliberately said no, but he knew that even if he disagreed, Sakazuki had a way to invite those people here, so that they would not only offend Sakazuki, but also make it even more embarrassing, so he decided to send someone to inform. Don't rush over to stop it. Seeing the few people who followed him were standing there stupidly, Chris yelled angrily, and then those people reacted and quickly rushed into the playground to stop everything that happened in the playground. We will pass too. Sakazuki didn't stop it, although he knew that these teenagers could not hurt Lasana, but seeing Lasana standing alone and being bullied, he really felt very uncomfortable. Although the students were very fierce when they bullied Lasana, they scattered quickly after seeing the teacher coming, but they were forcibly gathered again by the teachers, standing in a row on the playground. After seeing Sakazuki, the sharp-eyed Lasana ran over in surprise and shouted, "Teacher." Sakazuki stroked Lasana's head heartily. He has always been very fond of this little girl who has lost her parents and looks. He hasn't seen him for a long time, so he is naturally very happy now. If you were wronged, you must tell the teacher that the teacher is your parent, whoever it is, will make the decision for you. I'm fine. Lasana smiled, but the more she was like this, the more distressed he became. He said, after a while, the teacher will call the shots for you. Don't be afraid, just do what the teacher says, understand? Although she didn't understand what Sakazuki meant, Lasana nodded and said, I see. Lasana, are you okay? At this time, the teenagers and girls who were also caught by several teenagers ran over, and the girl asked with concern. The girl looks 12 or 13 years old, with long pink hair, looks very delicate, while the teenager looks a little bigger, with short silver hair, very energetic. Seeing these two people, Lasana was very happy, and introduced to Sakazuki. Teacher, they are my good friends, Hina and Smoker. When I was in school, they often helped me. Hina, Smoker? Hearing these two names, Sakazuki was suddenly surprised. These are two celebrities. Later, one became Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral and the other became Rear Admiral of the Headquarters. Both were demon fruit power, especially Smoker, and even Logia's ability. However, I didn't expect that these two people would be classmates with Lasana. Well, thank you for taking care of Lasana, you stand next to me, and I will vent your anger for you later. Hina and Smoker saw that the teachers and principals of the school seemed to treat Sakazuki very respectfully, and they knew that he should be a very powerful man, but they hadn't heard Lasana mention it, so they were very curious. Most of the parents of the students worked in the headquarters, so Sakazuki did not wait long. Soon a group of marine officers of all levels came to this playground. Those who can enter this juvenile military academy are either really talented, or someone in the family is related to the headquarters. It is difficult for ordinary soldiers to have the opportunity to study in this school. When Chris sent someone to notify him, he had already told about the incident, so when these parents arrived, especially when they saw Sakazuki, they all did not dare to make noise, even if they saw their children standing there. They didn't dare to say hello. As for Sakazuki, they didn't dare to pass, they all stood on the side. After a while, Sakazuki asked impatiently, who else hasn't come? Chris replied, except Urubuchi Rear Admiral, everything else that can come is here. Sakazuki sneered. It seems that this Urubuchi's shelf is really big enough, and I can't even ask him to move him. Chris Cancan smiled and said, it's coming, it should be coming soon. But in his heart he scolded very uncomfortably. This Urubuk was really arrogant enough. Everyone else came, but he didn't come. Is this deliberately antagonizing Sakazuki again? You are too courageous. After a while, the Arub wizard was late, but he did not come alone. At the same time, there were several people with him. Sakazuki's face suddenly became serious when he saw the person coming. HMPH, have you moved all the patrons? You are really cautious. Oh, Sakazuki, what the hell is going on? How did you get into such a big battle? It's really scary. Before anyone arrived, the voice rang, and Paluzolino walked up to Sakazuki with a smile and said lazily. It turns out that the reason why Urubuk came so late was not to be an enemy of Sakazuki on purpose, but to be too jealous, so he didn't dare to come alone and invited his patron Paluzolino to join him. Sakazuki said coldly, Paluzolino, this matter has nothing to do with you, you'd better not interfere. Paluzolino still smiled and said, as a companion, how can I stand by when something happens to you? Everyone is a peace-loving person. Is there anything I can't discuss? everyone sits down and talks. It's over, right? Go and call Zephyr Admiral over now, hurry up. Chris gave orders to his cronies and looked very anxious. A Sakazuki already caused him a headache. Now there is another Pelusalino. These two people have the best chance of becoming Marine Admiral among naval headquarters. He is not comparable to Rear Admiral, a second-tier player. In his opinion, the only one who can hold them down is his immediate boss, Marine Admiral Zephyr. Peaceful. Ha ha. Sakazuki chuckled, then his eyes turned cold, and he said coldly, Perusalino, I said, this matter has nothing to do with you, and I am not targeting anyone, but if you want to take this beam, then there is no opinion either. Perusalino's eyes shrank suddenly, and the words had already spoken for this. One can imagine how serious Sakazuki is. It's just a play between children, there is no need to make it so serious, right? Before he came, he had heard Urubuchi talk about the ins and outs. He thought it was a very simple matter, but now looking at Sakazuki's posture, he is clearly preparing to pursue it, and even his face is useless. Children's play. This is no longer children's play. If it were a tea for my disciples who are Logia-capable people, I am afraid they would have been harmed by these children. Sakazuki was cold, said. Logia-capable person. Except for Sakazuki and Chris, who had just met, the others were all in shock. Perusalino asked in amazement, your disciple is Logia demon fruit power? He really didn't know this. He immediately turned his head, only to find that Urubuchi was also surprised, and apparently he didn't know it. This immediately embarrassed him. If it is an ordinary child, it will be fine, but now the kid being bullied is not only a disciple of Sakazuki, but also a Logia-capable person, which can be a big trouble. He himself is Logia's ability person, so he knows the preciousness of Logia devil fruit. It is not an exaggeration. Even if Logia ability person is placed in the entire naval headquarters, it is absolutely rare and needs to be cultivated. Sakazuki said, my disciple, Lasana, a Logia snow fruit capable person. That's right. The devil fruit he ate for Lasana was the most precious Logia in the three-line devil fruit, which is the devil fruit and snow fruit of Monet, one of the original Don Quixote family members. This fruit is the devil fruit that he confiscated from the Belit pirates. When he got this devil fruit, he was still very puzzled. Why did Belit not eat such a good devil fruit, but instead? It is hidden. He thought it was because the other party wanted to exchange money. Thinking about it now, it's also possible that Belit didn't know what the fruit was, so he didn't dare to eat it randomly, or for other reasons. In short, it was cheaper. Although snow fruit does not show too much power in the anime, it is more because of the problem of the people taking it. It is also Logia devil fruit, even if it is not comparable to lava fruit, frozen fruit and the like, but at least it's not worse than smoking fruit. Such precious fruit, as long as normal people eat it, the final achievement will not be too bad. He was originally going to use it for his subordinates, but he was very unbearable when he saw Lasana's appearance. After thinking about it for a long time, give this snow fruit to Lasana. Snow fruit capable person, really an amazing little girl. Pelusalino praised sincerely. After being amazed, he said to Sakazuki again, Sakazuki, I know you are angry, but after all, it's just a contradiction between children. If you intervene, it won't be a good thing for you or Lasana. Sakazuki just glanced at him, then looked at Arubik behind him, and said coldly, Arub's Rear Admiral, right? The boy who bullied Lasana is the leader of your son. What do you think? Did you say that? Fear score from Arubik. +132. Contacting Sakazuki's cold eyes, Arubik's heart trembled. Dona T look at him now that he has the rank of Rear Admiral, but he has just been transferred from the branch to the headquarters for a short time. The headquarters of Rear Admiral is considered to be a very reliable player. Later, when facing the famous Sakazuki, he was naturally flustered, because he had heard that this is not only cruel, but also denied by his 6 relatives. He is definitely not an easy master. Knowing this, he invited Pelusalino over, hoping that Pelusalino would reconcile him, but he didn't expect that Sakazuki would not give face at all, so he asked him directly. Me. He first glanced at Pelusalino, then gritted his teeth and said, what do you want to do with it? I'll listen to you. He also took the risk. It seemed that Pelusalino's face was no use, so he simply let Sakazuki deal with it. Anyway, he didn't believe in what Sakazuki could do to his son unless he really did. Shameless. Sakazuki snorted. How could he not understand what Arubik meant? Let me decide. Okay. Everyone looked at Sakazuki, wanting to see what kind of decision he would make, but before he made a decision, they saw Zephyr walking quickly with a few people. Sakazuki, Pelusalino, What's the matter with you two? Because he was eager to invite Zephyr, he didn't have time to explain. Zephyr rushed over as quickly as possible. He didn't know what happened, and thought that Sakazuki and Pelusalino had a conflict. Chris greeted him immediately and told Zephyr again, and Zephyr frowned. Chris, this is how you do your education work. After knowing the ins and outs, Zephyr was very dissatisfied with Chris in public. He was engaged in education for decades, and this phenomenon has never happened before, especially when so many people bullied an 11-year-old girl. It's too bad. Chris always nodded to admit his mistake wherever he dared to speak. At this time, he just wanted to solve the matter as soon as possible. Zephyr scanned the parents who were the same as Urubuchi, and looked at Lasana in surprise. He ate Logia snow fruit at a very young age. It was a very good seedling. Finally, he looked at Sakazuki. Sakazuki, the school has a great responsibility for this matter. I will handle it impartially. After all, it is a conflict between children, so you don't have to intervene. But Sakazuki shook his head and said, Mr. Zephyr, of course I have to intervene in this matter. My request is also very simple. I believe the parents here will agree. What do you want to do? Zephyr is the education department of the chief naval headquarters, so this matter is also under his control. He naturally can't let Sakazuki's character mess up. Sakazuki said, it's very simple. Since there are conflicts between children, adults can't intervene, and I don't bully others. I gather all the children who bullied Lasana together and let Lasana fight with them. After that, everything is over. Hearing this, everyone present looked at each other. They thought Sakazuki would make any excessive demands, but he didn't expect him to make such a decision. Especially the parents who have been standing on the side with fear. In just this short amount of effort, they have provided Sakazuki with more than 1,000 fear points, and each parent has provided dozens of points. Now after knowing Sakazuki's decision, one by one was relieved. But there were also people who looked nervous, such as Urubuchi. He couldn't help but said, but your disciple is Logia demon fruit power, and the children can't beat him at all. Sakazuki's eyes were cold, and he said coldly, then why didn't they think about it when they bullied Lasana before? Now I have asked, but you don't want to execute it, then tell me, what do you want to do? Fear from Urubik. +39. Urubik's heart trembled again. Others didn't know how powerful Logia was. He knew very well that even if Lasana stood there and let his son fight, his son would not be able to fight, but Lasana wanted to fight. His son can be beaten, which can be said to be invincible. Of course he will feel sorry for his son. I can ask my son to apologize to Miss Lasana and promise not to bully her again. What do you think? As soon as he said this, many people around him looked at him with strange eyes. Are you stupid? Sakazuki Vice Admiral made such a big move. If it's just an apology and it's over, it's not like slap yourself in the face. Sure enough, when Sakazuki heard what he said, he suddenly laughed. Urubuchi Rear Admiral, according to what you said, the matter is also simple, so let me beat you, and then I will apologize to you. How about? At the end of the day, his tone became extremely cold, which made Urubuchi and the parents around him a wave of fear. Just kidding, who is Sakazuki? The most famous person in naval headquarters. All of them are not his opponents together. Even if he is beaten by him, even if he can't kill him, he will be seriously injured, so they don't want to. Besides, what if Lasana hits their child? The child can make multiple hands. I agree. Urubuchi quickly nodded and agreed, because he also saw that Zephyr and Pelusalino were unlikely to continue to speak for him. After all, this matter was caused by his son, and they asked his disciple to fight back. Of course. This is not the civilized society where Sakazuki used to live. This world is a cannibalistic society. Even in a military organization like Naval Headquarters, it also speaks of strength and status. You have the strength to bully others, and you can leave others speechless. Said, this is also your ability, but if you have no strength, but you are in trouble, and you want to escape when something happens, I'm sorry, it's not so good. Even Urubuchi agreed, and the parents of the other students would naturally not object. Sakazuki didn't give face in front of Pelusalino and Zephyr. They were far worse than Urubuchi, so how dare you? Say one more thing. Sakazuki called Lasana in front of him. After squatting down, he said seriously, Lasana, you have already heard. Although I can help you out for some things, people must rely on themselves and use yours power to fight. You can bully them how they bully you. Even if you crippled them all, I can settle this matter. You just have to remember that we don't take the initiative to bully others, but if others bully us, we will pay back 10 times. Don't be afraid, and treat them as pirates. Do you understand? Treat them as pirates. The people around listened to what Sakazuki taught Lasana, Many of them were depressed and embarrassed. Is there such a way to educate children? Even if you are disabled, you are not afraid, and you treat the other party as a pirate. This is all nonsense. However, no one noticed that when Lasana heard Sakazuki's last words, the girl who had been acting harmlessly suddenly trembled in the depths of her eyes, and even the scar on her left face seemed to tremble. But this scene was only seen by Sakazuki, and he didn't think it was a bad thing. The kid was lacking the motivation to live. If it weren't for him, he might have starved to death. What if he becomes extreme now? Anyway, he is confident that he can cover it. I see, teacher. Nodding to Sakazuki, Lasana walked to the middle of the playground that had been cleared. As for the students who have bullied Lasana, they were all told by their parents. Be careful not to hurt Lasana, and pay attention to your own safety, etc. Hey, I really haven't encountered a fight between children, Sakazuki. Even if it was us back then, I haven't had such a scene. Paluzolino smiled and said haha to Sakazuki. He was in the same session as Sakazuki. At the beginning, both of them were recruited from many recruits. At that time, they hadn't taken the fruit yet, but they were considered monsters. Seeing that Sakazuki didn't pay attention to himself, he curled his lips and stopped talking. Sakazuki and others all sat down in the stands of the playground. A child's fight has attracted so many people's attention. This is the first time in the history of the Juvenile Military Academy. Zephyr sat at the top, Paluzolino and Sakazuki at the bottom, and the rest were standing. Hina and Smoker, who had helped Lasana before, were called by Sakazuki and stood behind him. Master Vice Admiral, Lasana must not be able to beat so many of them alone. Let's go and help her. Although Hina is a little girl, she screamed with full loyalty at this time. Smoker beside him saw her saying this, and also patted her chest, and wanted to help with Hina. Sakazuki looked at the two gently. His attitude was not because they were the key figures in the plot, but because they really wanted to help Lasana just now. Don't worry, you two. Lasana is my disciple. I know her better than you. She is different from what you think. Lasana has been with him for 2 years. Even though he usually focuses on his own exercise, he has never neglected the education of Lasana. Although Lasana is only 11 years old now, even if he does not use the fruit ability, definitely a little genius. When Zephyr, who was sitting in the first place, saw Hina and Smoker, his eyes lit up, especially the performance of the two, which made him nod slightly. Lasana is the only one left in the huge playground, and there are 26 students who bullied her before. Lasana is at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, but she is the same as before, without any fear. Stand in the middle. The teenagers standing around Lasana knew what was going on now, especially when they knew that Lasana was a disciple who didn't even dare to offend their parents. They were very nervous and afraid. But when they knew they were going to fight Lasana, they were very surprised. They had bullied Lasana many times before. They knew that Lasana was a monster. They couldn't hurt each other at all, but they were not afraid. I feel that even if Lasana is a monster, they can't hit her, and he can't beat so many of them. It's time to start, Lasana. Seeing all the people who bullied Lasana just now gathered together, Sakazuki immediately ordered Lasana. The next moment, a scene that shocked many people happened. When Lasana heard Sakazuki's words, she moved quickly and rushed to one of the teenagers like a rabbit. Before the other party could react, she hit him in the face with a punch. Boom. The sound of fist collision sounded, and the teenagers reacted, but Lasana quickly rushed to the other person. In the blink of an eye, the 3 teenagers were brought down by Lasana. At this time, those teenagers woke up in shock. They all yelled in anger where they remembered what their parents had just explained. Everyone, go together and kill this monster, ugly. There are too many teenagers and less bullying. Lasana is naturally at a disadvantage, but the problem is that the other party's fist hits her and it has no effect at all, while her attack hits others, but it is a real attack. What a great little guy. Rao was a Marine admiral who taught countless elites like Zephyr. After seeing Lasana's movements and shots, he was shocked. Lasana was in her early 10 years old, but seeing her shot speed and sharpness, it didn't look like it. People at this age should have it. Even some 16 or 17-year-olds may not necessarily be better than her. But then he frowned, because Lasana shot without mercy, basically hitting those teenagers in the face. Few teenagers who were knocked down by her could stand up again. Sakazuki, there is a problem with your education method. She is a very gifted child. If you teach her this way, she will be on a crooked road, Zephyr said to Sakazuki. Sakazuki stared at the battlefield and replied casually, she is my disciple. I know how to teach students in accordance with their aptitude. Zephyr can only shook his head about this. Although he also knew that Lasana was a very good seedling, But according to Sakazuki's education, sooner or later, he would be like Sakazuki. The two are the same Logia, and the same surpasses her peers. The same shot is harsh, really exactly the same. With the ability of Logia Snowfruit, coupled with the fighting skills cultivated by Sakazuki, plus a bit of fierceness, for those teenagers, it is simply an incomprehensible existence, so this battle is not. It didn't last too long. After 10 minutes, all the teenagers fell to the ground. In the end, Lasana rode on a young man, her fists kept falling on his face, and the young man's face was beaten with blood. Urubsh kept watching, but at this time he finally couldn't help it. As soon as he moved, he rushed towards the playground, but there was a red figure faster than him. What do you want to do? The shoulder was grasped by tremendous force, and the pain was in his heart. Urubuchi was full of pain. He begged, Sakazuki Vice Admiral, please, please, please let my son, let him a child. Fear value from Urubik. +374, +151. I didn't do anything to your son, it was just a fair showdown, Sakazuki said coldly. Sakazuki, there is no need to make it like this. The yellow light flickered and Paluzolino also appeared next to Sakazuki, holding out one hand to hold Sakazuki's wrist. Don't be nosy, Paluzolino. Sakazuki's eyes were cold, staring coldly at Paluzolino, and he grabbed Urubuchi's right hand and slowly turned into magma. The hot burning made Urubuchi howl in pain. Fear score from Urubik. +296. Enough, Sakazuki. Zephyr let out a cold snort of dissatisfaction, walked over, and finally said, that's it, it's all over. The surrounding parents all ran to their son. Zephyr didn't speak before. They were photographed by Sakazuki's Majesty and did not dare to move. But now that Zephyr spoke, they didn't have to worry about Sakazuki and immediately took their children away. Lasana ran back to Sakazuki's face, and saw that her little hands were covered with blood, some of the teenagers beaten by her, and some of her own, but she did not groan at all. Let's go back. Sakazuki took Lasana and left the school. When he walked in front of Chris, he paused and said, I don't want this kind of thing to happen again. Lasana, listen up. If anyone dares to bully you in the future, just do it today. Understand? I see, teacher. Lasana nodded and agreed. Chris has a cold sweat on his face. Good fellow, if the situation is like today, how many times can those teenagers withstand Lasana's fights? After Sakazuki and them all left, Zephyr said to Chris with dissatisfaction, Chris, when you were the principal of this school, you valued your ability, but today, you let me down too much. Chris sweated profusely and said nervously, I promise that this kind of thing won't happen again in the future. I hope it's the last time. Zephyr gave a cold snort, and then was about to leave, but after 2 steps, he stopped again as if recalling something. By the way, the 2 teenagers who were just next to Sakazuki will focus on training in the future. After speaking, he left, but Chris also understood what he meant. He knew that Zephyr had taken a fancy to the 2 boys and girls, so he immediately remembered it. What happened today really made Chris lose face. Although it was not a big deal, it attracted people like Sakazuki and Zephyr. This undoubtedly showed that his ability was insufficient and left a bad impression on everyone. His heart was full of anger towards that teacher, and he wanted to kill him. This incident ended in such a result. After today's incident, I believe that no one will dare to bully Lasana in the school in the future. To be precise, no one can bully her, so neither does Sakazuki. Worry again. Those teenagers who had been beaten by Lasana were even more scared. They used to bully before, thinking that Lasana was a victim of their torment. However, after the battle just now, they discovered that they weren't a victim at all, but a proper devil. After all, they are all teenagers, and naturally they don't dare to bully Lasana anymore after seeing the great ones. Lasana, you will encounter this kind of thing in the future. Remember, no matter who it is, you will fight back. Fight if you can't fight, and run away if you fail. Come back and tell me that I will avenge you. After returning to the residence, Sakazuki left Lasana behind, and then ordered her while dressing her wounds. Lasana's face was startled at first, but she nodded seriously and said, well, I see, teacher. She is a very obedient child, but there is only one person in this world who can make her unconditionally believe and obey, so no matter what Sakazuki says, she will believe it. Sakazuki nodded in satisfaction. When he saw Lasana being bullied in this way, he was really worried that the child was too kind, but after seeing her violently beat the group of teenagers, he realized that she was not without temper. It's just that the target people are different. He told her before that after treating that group of teenagers as pirates, look at the result. A large group of teenagers were beaten by her alone and couldn't find the north, which was extremely miserable. If someone else sees his child being so violent, he will definitely be worried and nervous, but Sakazuki is different. He is relieved instead, because he thinks it should be like this in this world. If in his previous world, he would teach Lee Shana gets along with people peacefully, but in this world where the strong respects you, it is better to make others afraid of you than to be bullied by others. As for the sentence he taught, fight if you can't fight, and run if you can't fight. This is his attitude. If you can't fight, you won't run, waiting to be killed by others? After communicating with Lasana for a while, he asked Lasana to go back to rest. Now Lasana is still young. After a few years of growing up, he will take her on missions. He doesn't want Lasana to be greenhouse flowers. A few days later, Sakazuki asked the ghost spider to summon the 30 students. 1 month has passed, and the test he said before should also be carried out. I called you here today, presumably you all know what it is for, right? 30 soldiers stood there with serious faces and spent more than a year with Sakazuki. They have already let them know the cruelty and coldness of this adult, and no one will dare to disobey his orders. This test is actually very simple. In my opinion it is very simple, but for some of you, I am afraid it is not that simple, because that is something you have never done before. 30 people all looked at Sakazuki in confusion, and they didn't understand what Sakazuki wanted to test them. Now, everyone will follow me and get on the boat. Hearing Sakazuki let them on board, everyone was even more confused. Does this mean to take them away from naval headquarters? It was strange, but they still obeyed the order and followed behind. The group quickly arrived at the port of naval headquarters. A large warship was docked there. After Sakazuki boarded the ship, the rest of the people boarded the ship one after the other. It's all ready. After boarding the warship, the ghost spider on the warship said to Sakazuki. Okay, let's go. Sakazuki said. The ghost spider frowned slightly. But is this really good? They are after all the people, Zephyr Admiral explained. Sakazuki said coldly. When I get to my hand, it will be my soldier. I have arranged this way, and naturally there is my reason. Alright. Seeing that Sakazuki was so determined, the ghost spider couldn't say anything. Who made Sakazuki his boss, and the 30 soldiers had nothing to do with him. Sakazuki would be responsible if something went wrong. The warship sailed on the sea without rush, and soon left Marineford, and it took another hour to stop. 30 recruits have been gathered on the deck. More than a year has passed. The youngest boy at the time is now 17 or 18 years old. He is a grown-up, especially under the training of Sakazuki. They are full of vigor and vigor, even the few female soldiers are full of heroic vigor. Do you know why I brought you here? Sakazuki asked loudly. I don't know. All 30 people answered loudly. A sneer appeared at the corner of Sakazuki's mouth, and said, the reason why you were brought here is because the next test is not suitable for the headquarters, otherwise you will definitely be held accountable, but it is different here. No one will knowing what I want to do, even if one of you is dead. I have 100 reasons to avoid being held accountable. Hearing this, many people trembled in their hearts, instinctively fearful, and provided Sakazuki with a wave of fear. Don't think I'm joking with you, the next test will definitely make you remember in the depths of your soul. Sakazuki told the ghost spider. Come on. At this time they have come to a small island. This is an uninhabited island, above the sea. There are countless uninhabited islands like this, with a radius of only a few kilometers, not suitable for survival, and not suitable for building villages and towns. After landing, Sakazuki took the people to the island, and then told the ghost spider, go and bring people over. The ghost spider left quickly, and Sakazuki said to the 30 soldiers, you guys have a rest first, there won't be such a good life after a while. The recruits gathered together in confusion. They were afraid to ask Sakazuki, but they were all curious why Sakazuki brought them to this uninhabited island, and they were all guessing what the next test would be. Hearing what Sakazuki said so terrifying all the time, they naturally felt guilty in their hearts. After a few tens of minutes, the ghost spider and hundreds of marine soldiers escorted a group of people in ragged and dirty clothes. People have been brought here. There were originally more than 80 people. Some died during this time. Now there are only 64 people left. Ghost Spider said to Sakazuki. Sakazuki nodded and said, 64 people. It's enough as a test, so be it. The next test is very simple. Have you seen these people? They are your opponents, a total of 64 people. As long as you can kill them all, even if you pass the test, the time is set to 3 days. Sakazuki pointed to the 64 people who looked very miserable, and said to the 30 soldiers under his opponent. These 60 people were the ones he captured specifically for this test. They were all pirates with blood on their hands. They were pirates caught by his private army in more than a year. The pirates were handed over to naval headquarters. Those who were left were pirates with low bounty, and they were kept in captivity on this uninhabited island, and they finally came in handy today. In fact, there were not only so many people at the beginning, but the environment on this uninhabited island was harsh. In order to survive, these people would naturally kill each other, so there are only 60 people left now. As for why these people didn't leave the island, it was because Sakazuki's private army was guarding them, and the Islanda's geographical location was very remote. In the vast sea, it is impossible to leave without ships. These people are not people with great abilities, so naturally it is impossible to escape this uninhabited island. Kill. When I heard Sakazuki's words, all the 30 recruits showed horror. Since joining Marine, although they have been receiving harsh training under Sakazuki, they have never left the base, let alone murder. None of them have ever killed people. Now that they know that the people who want to kill can pass the test, all of them are pale. From one after another, the fear value appeared, and Sakazuki felt even more dissatisfied. The psychological quality of these people is really too bad. They just told them to kill. Before they started to kill, they had already begun to fear. It seems that the test this time is true. It's the right choice. A soldier who has not experienced killing is not a qualified soldier at all. He was dissatisfied, but instead of venting to those recruits, he turned his head and looked at the ragged pirates. Since you were caught by Marine, you should have realized your situation so far. I am Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral. If it is normal, I will definitely deal with all of you pirates, but today, I will give you have a chance. This group of people have been kept here for a long time. The longest time has been more than 5 months. They have gradually accepted their fate. Originally, after they were taken, they would be executed, but Sakazuki unexpectedly led a group of recruits. Eggs to deal with them. Have you seen those 30 people? They are our Marine recruits and my soldiers. The opportunity I give you is. Next, I will test them. The test is very simple. They are on this island. Come on, let you kill each other. Different from the group of recruits, when these 64 people heard Sakazuki's words, instead of showing fear, they had red lights in their eyes, because they had been killing each other during this time. My requirement for them is that as long as they can kill you all, even if they pass the test, I also give you a chance. As long as any one of you can kill any one of the 30 soldiers, hold his when the heads come to me, I will let you live and take you away from this island. What are you saying seriously? The pirates who had already given up hope all exclaimed with brilliance in their eyes. Sakazuki said coldly, I have always said one thing, even if you are pirates, I will never break my promise. As long as you can do what I say, I will definitely let you go. Many of the 60-odd pirates knew each other. They looked at each other and someone asked, we can agree, but we don't know what you want. People under the eaves have to bow their heads. This group of pirates is also very simple. They have had enough on this island for so long, and now they have hope to leave, even if they are given a chance by their rival Marine, but they still don't want to let this opportunity pass. Sakazuki said coldly, my requirement is that there is no requirement, just on this island, I don't care what means you use, as long as you can meet the requirements, I will abide by the agreement. After the words fell, the eyes of the group of pirates suddenly changed. They all stared fiercely at the 30 recruits, and the recruits who watched were very nervous. Sakazuki turned his head and said to them, you have heard what I said, this test is so simple. Simple, it's still called simple. Many people swear angrily in their hearts, but they dare not speak. Me, can I quit? Suddenly a 17 or 18-year-old girl came out and asked nervously. Sakazuki smiled first, but then coldly shouted, yes, but you will not be a Marine soldier from now on, and I am not obliged to take you back. After the test is over, you will stay on this island alone. Find a way to leave. Fear from Callista. +358. The girl's face turned white. There was no difference between staying alone on this uninhabited island, which was different from looking for death, so he hurried back to the team again in shock, never daring to say anything more. The rest of the recruits are also pale, but they know how cold the man in front of them is. He is definitely the type that says he can do it, so no one dares to quit. Very well, since you have chosen to agree, then let us get ready to start, but you don't need to have too much psychological burden, because your opponents are all bloody pirates, and you will want it in the future. The enemy we are facing is just ahead of schedule now, and it is just a warm-up training. Listen well. There are a total of 64 pirates. No matter what method you use, you must kill all of them to pass the test. On the contrary, if you are killed, you can only count your skills. Not as good as others, don't expect me to avenge you. With a final warning, Sakazuki said grimly. Next, get ready to start. The ghost spider first put the 64 pirates back on the island, and then took 30 recruits to the other side of the island to prepare them at a distance. The hunt is about to begin. After everything was set up, Sakazuki returned to the deck and sat in a chair, drinking tea while looking at the island. He seemed to have seen the battle between the two sides about to begin. I hope you guys don't let me down too much. Is this really okay? The ghost spider standing aside said a little uneasy. After all, they were given to you by Zephyr Admiral. If you lose some people here, Zephyr Admiral can't explain it, right? These people are all elite seedlings selected by Zephyr, but according to Sakazuki's test, who knows what will happen, although the pirates are relatively weak, but they are much stronger than those recruits, that is, they are very spicy. A group of cruel bastards who have adapted to the geographical environment, and a group of recruits who are competent but inexperienced and unprepared, it is really hard to say who wins and who loses. Sakazuki said indifferently. Since these people are handed over to me, they are my soldiers. Even Zephyr Admiral can't question me. They are just a group of pirates with little skills. If even these people can't deal with it, what qualifications do they have to fight against soldiers trained by Zephyr Admiral in more than a year? Half of the time has passed since his bet with Zephyr. He is very aware of his disadvantages. In terms of training soldiers, even if he adds ghost spiders, he will definitely not be Zephyr's opponent. Zephyr has much more experience than them. So since Zephyr is inferior to Zephyr in experience, he can't train according to the conventional method. Today's test was decided a long time ago, and he would never stop because of his softness. As for whether he would lose, he didn't care at all. As long as he was not dead, he could explain it, because he had completely investigated and made it clear that these 30 recruits had no background, and at most Zephyr would trouble him. But how could he care about this? And he didn't believe that the soldiers he trained would be so weak. The devil training for more than a year is not a playhouse. Apart from the inexperience in killing people and the lack of understanding of the environment, these 30 people are compared to those 60. The pirates are much better in every aspect, and now it's up to them whether they can play to their advantages. You really don't need to send someone to watch? The ghost spider is still a little worried. Sakazuki finally lifted the ban. He really does not want accidents, especially for this group of newcomers. In his opinion, the gambling between Sakazuki and Zephyr is nothing at all. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It is necessary to use the future to gamble. Sakazuki said faintly. This is a fair duel. The brave will win if you meet on a narrow road. If you send someone to stare at it, what's the point? Ghost spiders, these little guys are your main training. You have a little confidence in them. He knows that many of these 30 people are officers of the future naval headquarters. Although they are still small, they should still have the potential. If they can't handle even these ordinary pirates, it's really nothing. Used. If you don't send someone to watch, you really don't send someone to watch. A group of people just waited on the island. From the Qingming festival to the evening, no one appeared in front of them. It seems that they have not yet decided the victory or defeat. Let's clean up. We will spend the night on the warship today. Sakazuki stood up and returned directly to the warship. This result was also in his expectation, because the day is not a good opportunity for ambushes and assassinations, and the night is the most challenging time. Although the pirates are small roles, but combat experience is definitely not lacking. Since they know their strengths, they will definitely unite in order to survive. For such a test, he is actually not very interested, because no matter which side he is, he can't get on the stage in his eyes. He only cares about the result and wants to see if the soldiers he has trained will let him down. Fear score from Uchimura. Plus 214. 82. Froma AAAA. After the night, the prompts from the system suddenly skyrocketed. Most of them came from the fear of those recruits, and only a few were contributed by other pirates. Although he didn't see the situation on the island, he saw the system prompts, and he knew that the battle between the two sides had officially started. The second Tenten turned on, the ghost spider knocked on his door solemnly. After seeing Sakazuki, there was only one sentence. The test is over. Sakazuki nodded, washed as usual, and then walked off the warship. The result did not exceed his expectations. The recruits stood in front of him in the end, but these people were basically injured. The ghost spider said solemnly. All 64 pirates were killed, 30 recruits, 2 died, and 1 was missing. Only 27 people remained, of whom 26 were with injuries, 8 people were seriously injured and 2 of them became disabled. It's miserable. Sakazuki chuckled slightly. He was quite surprised by the result. He thought the loss would be even greater. It seems that this group of recruits did not disappoint him too much. Walking in front of these recruits, Sakazuki said, "Congratulations on passing the test." Hearing Sakazuki's words, none of the remaining recruits showed happiness, instead they all glared at Sakazuki. "It looks like you are angry, that's right." These people did not provide him with a fear value. Instead, they appeared angry. Instead of being angry, Sakazuki nodded in satisfaction. "Your anger has shown me your bloody nature. A soldier can have nothing but bloodiness. I know that you are very angry at me now, but this is reality. The mission of a soldier is to obey orders. What is the level of the pirates who fought with you? I believe you can now give the answer. To put it bluntly, any one of you can beat the three of them, let alone you have been together for several years. Companions, and the other party is just a pirate who was put together temporarily. In my expectation, you should defeat them all in the shortest time." But what was the result? Not only were you beaten like this by the other party, you also lost 3 of your companions. It's not that the other party is too strong, but you are too weak. But in any case, you have all passed the test, so from now on, you are no longer ordinary soldiers. As Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, I announce that all of you present have been promoted to sergeant. The recruits who were still very angry at first heard this and they were all shocked. You must know that Naval Headquarters has high requirements for the promotion of military rank. Don't look at them now that they have joined Marine for 2 years, but they still haven't been assigned. In the Army, it is still just an ordinary recruit. Recruits are the lowest rank among Naval Headquarters. Sakazuki promoted them to sergeant, that is, they were promoted to 4 ranks at once. This is absolutely amazing. For many soldiers, if you want to be promoted to sergeant, you need at least 5 or 6 years, unless your backstage is hard enough, or you have an amazing talent like Sakazuki. Obviously, although some of them have good talents, they are not outstanding among Naval Headquarters. It is absolutely tempting to be able to rise to 4 levels at once, and no one can refuse. After all, IDA's just a group of immature teenagers, and the oldest is only in their 20s. So under Sakazuki's slap and a sweet date, it quickly calmed down, followed by more fear. Everyone is afraid of Sakazuki from the heart, where the fear value that keeps appearing can be seen. Sakazuki didn't pay much attention to these recruiting ideas. In his opinion, he wouldn't have much exchanges with these recruits in the future, because except for a few people, the rest of them are not too much. They valued it and didn't have the idea of taking them back to their subordinates. Now they are just using them to complete the gambling contract. After completing the test, Sakazuki rushed back to Naval Headquarters with someone, because he has received the news that Naval Headquarters will have a big move next. Marine Marshal Sora will abdicate in a month, and Marine Admiral Sengoku will soon succeed Marshal Marine. A post. Although it was long expected that Sora would abdicate this year, he did not expect that he would come so soon. Sakazuki knew very well that once Sora abdicated, then the layout of Naval Headquarters would change drastically, the older generation. Most of Marine's senior management will retire, the new generation of Marine power will emerge one by one, and Marine will usher in a new era. In fact, for Sakazuki, he hopes that Sora will not abdicate for the time being, because he thinks Sakazuki should value him more than Sengoku. If Sakazuki is in position, he will have a greater chance of boarding Marine Admiral. It's just that he also knows that this kind of thing has been settled a long time ago and is the general trend, and in today's Naval Headquarters, besides Sengoku, there is indeed no second suitable candidate. When he returned to Naval Headquarters, he immediately noticed that the atmosphere of Naval Headquarters had undergone tremendous changes. The entire headquarters was plunged into a weird atmosphere. He knew this was because everyone knew the news, and let's wait for that day to come, otherwise it will remain in this state for the rest of the day. A month's time is neither long nor short. In this month's time, many of Marinea's branches and generals all over the world have returned to the headquarters. Now the flow of people in Marineford is higher than before. At least more than 30% more. In addition, there are also many nobles in Marineford. For example, high-ranking officials from the world government often appear, especially Sengoku. This period can be described as extremely busy, constantly contacting people in various fields, and maintaining them almost all day. Busy. Compared with the busy Sengoku, Sakazuki is relatively leisurely during this period. He once again gave the recruits who passed the test a 1-month vacation to relax them. At the same time, he reported to Zephyr that he lost 3 recruits. As he expected, Zephyr did not make the rest of the decision except for a scolding, because now Sakazuki has lifted the ban and no longer belongs to his subordinates, he is no longer qualified to impose any punishment on Sakazuki. What's more, he still has a gambling appointment with Sakazuki, so he still let Sakazuki choose 3 people to make up, but Sakazuki rejected this plan and is not ready to continue to increase manpower. Sometimes more people may not be a good thing. Fewer people is not necessarily a bad thing. The specifications of Sengoku's successor to Marine Marshal are very high. All the top leaders of naval headquarters are gathered together. In addition to the high-ranking officials and nobles from the world government, Marineford was filled with joy for a whole day. For several hours, it is considered to have completed the succession ceremony. From the beginning to the end, Sakazuki watched it, especially when he saw Sengoku's high spirits. He didn't have much envy, because he knew very well that although Sengoku succeeded the Marine Marshal, he was not actually really completely controlled Marine, he was still constrained by the world government. In addition to Sengoku's successor as Marshal Marine, the former Marine Marshal Kong was transferred to Mariajoy, the Holy Land of the world government, and became the commander-in-chief of the whole army under the world government. He will nominally command all the troops under the world government, and his position is very high. But there is a big constraint, that is, you can't leave the Holy Land Mariajoy easily. The day after Sengoku succeeded Marshal, Sakazuki was summoned by former Marine Marshal Sora. Still in the original office, Sakazuki saw the abdicated Sora. Unlike before, Sora had already removed Marine's justice coat and dressed in ordinary plain clothes. After seeing Sakazuki come in, Sakazuki beckoned to him. Sakazuki sat down opposite Sora and looked at the other person. In fact, he knew very well that Sora had taken care of him more than 2 years. Now Sora is about to leave, he still feels a little bit reluctant to leave. Sakazuki, I'm leaving Marineford, and I have something to say to you at the end, Sora said calmly. Sakazuki said, please speak. Sora said, among the new generation of Marine generals, the person I am most optimistic about is you. Although Peluzolino is also good, he is too lazy, and he is more than enough to take charge of the party, but he wants to shoulder all the responsibilities of Marine. His lazy personality is not suitable. Kuzan is not bad, but he is still young after all, and he is more than calm in his work, lacks motivation, and is easily disturbed by others, and his wrist is slightly weak. As for you, I am quite satisfied in all aspects, especially your resolute justice, which I admire the most, but your shortcomings are also obvious. Sometimes you are too domineering, sharp, and do not know how to constrain. Perhaps this is because you own Conqueror's Hockey, your temperament will naturally be affected. I'm going to leave, so I will also say a few words to you. Sengoku is different from me. He pays more attention to the rules, so you should be careful in your actions in the future. Don't be so reckless. Think about the consequences before doing things, understand? Sakazuki nodded solemnly. Sora was able to say this to him before leaving. It shows that he really valued himself, and Sakazuki did help him with the previous few things, so he was more grateful in his heart. Seeing Sakazuki's expression, Hollow was very satisfied. The reason why Sakazuki was called alone to speak was because he was really optimistic about Sakazuki. Second, there are other plans. He will soon become the commander-in-chief of the whole army. Since he is the commander-in-chief of the whole army, of course he has to leave someone he trusts in Marine. Otherwise, if even Marine can't command, the whole army isn't the commander a joke? One more thing, yesterday, I recommended you to Sengoku, hoping to promote you to the new Marine Admiral. When Sora said that he would recommend him as Marine Admiral, Sakazuki was really surprised. He did not expect that Sora would actually make such a decision. As the Marine Marshal who had just abdicated, as long as he recommended himself to Sengoku he will definitely consider carefully, his chances of becoming Marine Admiral will increase by several %. Why? After thinking for a while, Sakazuki still asked. Kong Haha laughed and said, excellent talents should not be buried. I think Sengoku should consider you carefully. As for the relationship with the world government, I will also help you make adjustments. Presumably, they will sell my face. Establishing Marine Admiral is not just a Marine Marshal who can easily make an order. It requires a nod from 5 elders to formally give an order. Sora is about to become the commander-in-chief of the entire army. He still has the right to speak in front of 5 elders, so Sakazuki, I feel that my chance of becoming Marine Admiral this time is quite big. He naturally knew what to do next, and he replied with a serious face. Marshal, as long as you can make me a Marine Admiral, I will definitely not let down your expectations. There was no more words, he believed in empty space. I can definitely understand. Kong laughed and said, I am no longer Marshal Marine, you don't need to call me that. Becoming a Marine Admiral is not so easy, and the procedure is more complicated, so don't worry, as long as there is certain news, I will send someone to notify you, but the premise is that you don't make trouble for me during this period. At the beginning, Sakazuki was still listening very carefully, but when he heard the last sentence, he suddenly smiled bitterly. When did he become synonymous with trouble? It is estimated that few among naval headquarters dare to say this to him in person. After staying in the empty office for a while, Sakazuki left. Now that everyone's focus is on Sengoku, the headquarters is very lively. He didn't want to participate in this lively, so he went to places with few people. After strolling around the headquarters, he was ready to go back, but when he was about to return to his residence, he suddenly found a sneaky figure hiding in the corner of a building. Garp Vice Admiral. Although it was just a quick glance, his eyesight was amazing, and he recognized the figure at once. It was Garp. He was surprised, so he walked quietly towards the corner where Garp was. He didn't know if it was because of his base in the headquarters that Garp was not vigilant or was attracted to him. So when Sakazuki came behind him, I didn't find it, but I still looked forward with my head. When Sakazuki looked in the direction Garp was looking at, the whole person trembled and his face was shocked. Stunned. Really stunned, he never thought that there would be such a scene in naval headquarters. In the range of his sight, there was a large open space in front of him. Of course, this was not the point. There were hundreds of soldiers gathering in the open space, which was not the point either. The point is that these soldiers are actually female soldiers, and all of them are wearing close-fitting shorts and shorts. The calf is mostly white. It can be seen that this is a purely female army, and all of them are young and beautiful. They are trained by a strong female soldier. Standing on the side are the female officers in the naval headquarters. The highest status, he Vice Admiral. The hot weather, coupled with the hard training, made these female soldiers freshly dressed, but surrounded by many guarded soldiers, no one would be allowed in, and Garp's location was the only blind spot. Seeing Garp's concentration, he had been standing behind him for dozens of seconds, and he hadn't been noticed yet. Suddenly, there was a smirk at the corner of his mouth, and he lowered his head and screamed softly. "Does it look good? Good looking, really good looking." Garp, who instinctively answered, reacted in an instant. His whole body trembled first, then his body stiffened and turned around. Sakazuki asked with a cold face this time, "Garp Vice Admiral, if you think it looks good, why don't you go in to see it, or should I help you tell Vice Admiral Crane and ask her to allow you to go in?" "Ahem, hush." Garp first coughed awkwardly, and then quickly hissed at Sakazuki, beckoning him not to say anything. Fear score from Monkey D. Garp, +412, +127. I don't know if Ida because of a guilty conscience are really afraid of fear. Garp suddenly provided so many fear points, which made Sakazuki's heart burst into laughter. Who can think of Garp, who has always been lawless, also has a day of fear? "Stop talking, come with me." He was interrupted by Sakazuki. Where did he dare to stay here? He immediately pulled Sakazuki to run, and ran for several minutes before stopping, and then swept around, making sure that there was no one, before he vomited heavily. Tone. "What is Garp Vice Admiral running?" Sakazuki asked Garp with a smile. Garp suddenly turned black, pointed at Sakazuki and shouted angrily, "Sakazuki, I warn you, you didn't see anything just now, you know?" Sakazuki said with a bewildered look. "Really? But I just saw someone hiding in the side watching other female soldiers training, and this person is the famous Garp Vice Admiral. Is there a problem with my eyes? It seems that I need to look for it. He Vice Admiral can help with the treatment." With that, he actually turned around and prepared to leave, but he just started to move. Fear score from Monkey D. Garp, +115. Stop. Garp yelled and grabbed Sakazuki. His attitude changed 180 degrees, and he smiled and said, "Haha, Sakazuki, your kid did have a little eye problem. How could I do that kind of thing? What? I am Garp, the marine hero, and I will never do such sneaky things." "Really?" Sakazuki smiled at the corner of his mouth and stared at Garp without blinking. When Sakazuki saw it, his heart grew furry. It didn't take long before Garp was defeated and said with a gloomy expression, "Okay, I admit it, but don't think I am that kind of person. I just want to see Xiaohei's teachings. Is the method right? After all, I have much better experience than her in this aspect. If something is wrong, I can help correct it." But Sakazuki remained unmoved, causing Garp to sigh again, and finally said helplessly, "Well, Sakazuki, if your kid is ruthless, you can tell. What is going on, you won't say it." Seeing Garp's dejected and helpless face, Sakazuki really felt funny in his heart. To be honest, even he did not expect that the dignified marine hero, Garp Vice Admiral, who is admired by countless people, actually has this hobby. Although they are all men, it is forgivable, but this guy is good, and actually went sneaking. Peeping, and even after being caught, there is a real explanation. "Garp Vice Admiral, you and I are old acquaintances, do you think I will harm you?" Sakazuki said. Garp said with a disdain. Don't be close, I don't know who your kid is. Turning my face up is faster than turning a book, I won't believe you. Let's talk about it, don't tell me what to do, go out. Sakazuki looked helpless if you didn't believe me, and said, whatever you think, I don't have the time to delay with you. After that, he ignored Garp, turned around and left, but Garp didn't dare to rest assured that he followed Sakazuki all the time, waiting for Sakazuki to return to his room before he chose to leave. But what Sakazuki didn't expect was that the first person he saw after opening the door was Garp the next morning. He looked at himself with a smile on his face, and his expression was really fake. Fake. What are you doing? Garp laughed and said, it's not that I'm fine early in the morning, I thought of you, and then I came to you. Sakazuki certainly knows why he came, so he said, Garp Vice Admiral, don't worry, I will never peep you into a girl yesterday. And many more. Before he could finish speaking, Garp gave a sudden shout, and both Lucas and Lasana who came by were shocked, not to mention them, even Sakazuki himself was shocked. But then Sakazuki knew why. Lucas and Lasana were walking towards this side. If he continued to speak, he would most likely be heard. Garp yelled to stop him in a hurry. Nor is it deliberately scary. Garp Vice Admiral. Why are you here at Sakazuki Vice Admiral? Lucas and Lasana walked over, and Lucas was surprised when he saw Garp was here. Garp glared at Lucas uncomfortably, and yelled. Where should I report to you? I'm here to find Sakazuki kid, how far do you go? Naturally, his secret does not want to be affected by others. People know. Lucas didn't expect Garp to be so angry, so he turned to look at Sakazuki. Sakazuki knelt down and touched Lasana's head, and said softly, Lasana, you go to school with Uncle Lucas first. When school is over today, the teacher will pick you up, okay? Lasana nodded vigorously, her eyes narrowed, and happily replied, Just like Sakazuki is only gentle in front of Lasana, Lasana only smiles when in front of Sakazuki, and she looks like a real child, because they treat each other as relatives, and the relationship between relatives is fun. From the heart. Teacher, we are leaving. Lasana waved to Sakazuki, and then left under the leadership of Lucas. Hey, I didn't expect that your kid would have such tender moments. When Garp on the side saw Lasana and the others go away, he suddenly made a fuss and called out to Sakazuki. He has known Sakazuki for 10 years, but he has never seen Sakazuki smile so softly to anyone, so he was shocked after seeing it. He couldn't believe his eyes. Garp Vice Admiral, I don't have the time to talk nonsense with you here. I'm looking for a place to practice, Sakazuki said. Garp suddenly brightened his eyes and said, cultivation? Okay, I'm ready to practice as well. It's too boring to practice alone. Or I will be with you and I have more experience than you. Maybe I can guide you. But Sakazuki looked at him with suspicion and asked, do you want to beat me for this reason? Look at what you said, am I that kind of person? Garp smiled brightly. He really had this idea. He has suffered a lot from Sakazuki in the last 2 years. Even the Dragon Rebellion has something to do with Sakazuki, and he is very upset with him. Adding to the events of yesterday, he wished he could beat Sakazuki violently now. Sakazuki looked at Garp indifferently, and he was thinking in his heart. If you practice with Garp or fight against Garp, it may not be a bad thing. After all, a strong person like Garp is rare in the world. Being a sparring partner will definitely benefit the practice. There is only one problem. With his understanding of Garp, if he is really asked to practice sparring, with this guy's personality, he will definitely take the opportunity to retaliate against him. Then let's go to the training ground. When Garp heard this, his eyes lighted up and he confirmed, are you really going to train with me? Sakazuki shrugged and said, if you don't want to, then forget it. Forget it. Don't count. Let's go. I have a special training ground, we go there and make sure that no one will bother. Garp took Sakazuki and rushed. Many soldiers on the road were surprised to see Garp and Sakazuki together, because the two didn't seem to have much intersection before. When did the relationship become so good? Garp is worthy of being one of the most respected seniors in naval headquarters. He even has his own indoor training ground, which is extremely wide, no smaller than the outside training ground, and the equipment is also very complete. Bring it on. After entering the training ground, Garp took off his clothes, exposing his strong muscles, and shouted to Sakazuki. Sakazuki's face was speechless. This guy really didn't hide it at all. After entering the training ground, he showed his true shape and was about to start the fight. Although he complained in his heart, he did not refuse. Although the place here is not fully displayed, it is small. Fighting is still possible. Come. The two stayed on the training ground for a full day, and did not leave the training ground until the afternoon. When leaving, Sakazuki only felt sore all over. Garp really didn't keep his hands at all, except that he didn't greet him on the face. Most of the places were persecuted by Garp's iron fist. When fighting, he didn't use his abilities, and Garp didn't use his full power. They all used physical skills to fight. In the real battle, Sakazuki learned about Garp's power. When he watched the pirate anime, Garp's strength has always been a mystery. Now, although he hasn't seen Garp's real combat power, he is sure of one thing: Garp. He is much stronger than his current self. Even if he uses his full strength, he will definitely not be Garp's opponent, and it may even be far away. You guys are fine, your strength has improved very quickly. Garp laughed and praised Sakazuki. The violent beating of Sakazuki on this day made his whole body refreshed. Even if he was dissatisfied with Sakazuki before, it disappeared at the moment. Instead, he thinks Sakazuki is a good person, especially when he was just assaulted. At that time, the unyielding personality really resembled him when he was young. But it's far from Lousy's realm, wow ha ha ha. The first sentence was still a compliment, and the latter sentence became a boast, that smug look, and it was Garp alone. I'm going to pick up Lasana. I don't have time to listen to you boasting. Sakazuki cleaned up and was about to leave. Although he was beaten this time not lightly, but the gain was not small, so he could take what he needed. Don't, it's not time yet, let's hang out together. Garp didn't plan to let Sakazuki go, but he still pestered him. After walking for a while, he said again, well, Sakazuki kid, you should know what to do about yesterday's matter. Sakazuki snorted when he heard the words, and said, why didn't you think of this when you just fought? It's not that simple to want to pick it up so easily. Hey, don't cross the river and demolish the bridge. I was very serious about helping you guide your cultivation just now, Garp said anxiously. I don't know if Garp's luck is too bad, or Sakazuki's luck is too good, and suddenly someone walks up to him. Garp saw the visitor clearly, took a breath, and his face became tense. On the other hand, Sakazuki was shocked. His eyes became very sharp and glanced at Garp. His consciousness sank into the system, and decisively chose a double fear card. Use double fear card, target, Monkey D. Garp. Successfully used the double fear card. After successfully using the double fear card, Sakazuki ignored Garp's pull and walked towards the opposite person. Crane Vice Admiral. Sakazuki greeted them respectfully. It was Vice Admiral Crane who came to them. For Marine veterans like Vice Admiral Crane and Garp Vice Admiral, he has a kind of respect in his heart, because these people are worthy of respect. Even Zephyr, the two were very unfriendly at the beginning. When they were opposed, although he was dissatisfied with Zephyr, he still had a trace of respect. Such veterans have made great contributions to naval headquarters and they can enjoy the lofty status. This is how many years they have worked hard, so he will naturally respect it. Especially for senior women like Crane Vice Admiral, Sakazuki does not despise it, but respects it more, because he knows very well that although there are many female powerhouses in the pirate world, in the final analysis, it belongs to the world of men. Women think it's too difficult to get ahead. As the highest representative of female officers in naval headquarters, Crane Vice Admiral is definitely a heroine. As a female, he became the General Staff of Naval Headquarters. His position is second only to Marshal and Marine Admiral. This is absolutely remarkable. In particular, her wisdom is commendable. Naval Headquarters is as good as it is today, and she is also indispensable. Crane Vice Admiral nodded to Sakazuki, and then looked at Garp strangely. She was really puzzled that they were walking together. Is the relationship between them so good? Garp. Why are you here? Little Crane. Ah, haha, me. I have something to discuss with Sakazuki, haha. With a ghost in his heart, Garp smiled awkwardly, and kept blinking at Sakazuki, beckoning him not to talk nonsense and leave quickly. But Sakazuki didn't care about him. Kwandong didn't see him, and he said something to Vice Admiral. Crane Vice Admiral turned back and forth on Garp and Sakazuki. She always felt that both of them were a little strange today. Sakazuki still wanted to say something, but Garp avoided her eyes and didn't dare to talk to her. Garp, Sakazuki, do you two have something to say? Garp quickly replied, no, right, Sakazuki. Facing Garp blinking vigorously, Sakazuki was indifferent and said, yes, I do have something to say. Fear score from Monkey D. Garp. Plus 588. Sakazuki didn't say anything yet. Garp immediately provided 588 fear points. With the double fear card bonus, it was almost 1,200 fear points. This increase in fear value made him very satisfied. Just say anything. He Vice Admiral said. Good. Sakazuki nodded and said, I thought about this for 2 days yesterday and today, and finally decided to tell you. Fear score from Monkey D. Garp. Plus 1000. Garp actually provided 1000 fear points, which made Sakazuki dumbfounded. If you doubled it, it would be 2000 fear points, which is too reliable. Garp's eyes changed and he stared at Sakazuki very angrily. Fortunately, he praised Sakazuki just now, but he turned his head and sold him. He wanted to run, but Sakazuki grabbed one hand tightly. Live. That's it. I have a disciple named Lasana, don't you know? Under Garp's nervous gaze, Sakazuki didn't tell anything about yesterday, but instead talked about Lasana. This made him stare at Sakazuki incredibly, but he saw the mocking smile on the corner of Sakazuki's mouth. After looking at him, he realized that he had been tricked by Sakazuki. This bastard kid, even I dare to play, damn it. Garp's eyes widened and his stomach was full of anger. If it weren't for Vice Admiral, he couldn't help but beat Sakazuki again. He Vice Admiral replied. I heard Zephyr mention that the little girl is very talented, and she is also Logia Demon Fruit Power, with very high potential in the future. Logia capable person. The angry Garp was also attracted. He looked at Sakazuki in surprise, and asked, that little girl this morning is a Logia capable person. She is only so big, so you gave her devil fruit? Where did you get Logia? Devil fruit. Garp does not reject those with abilities, but he always believes that devil fruit can be eaten, but it should not be eaten so early, and you should exercise your physique when you are young. Not to mention the ability of Logia. You must know that Logia devil fruit is very rare. Anyone can cause a sensation. How did Sakazuki get Logia devil fruit? Regarding this, Sakazuki had already made an excuse, saying, I saved Lasana from the pirates. She ate devil fruit by herself. I didn't expect her luck to be so lucky. I'd Logia snow fruit. Logia devil fruit is very precious. In order not to be made irresponsible, of course he would not say that he gave Lasana devil fruit, but said Lasana got it herself, so that others would have nothing to say. Garp is different from Crane Vice Admiral. He is basically of the kind who does not matter to the world, and Crane Vice Admiral, as the General Staff of Naval Headquarters, needs to pay attention to the situation of the headquarters at all times. Lasana's affairs are very disturbing, she naturally heard. Sakazuki said, that's it. I heard Garp Vice Admiral say that you are training a female soldier. Although Lasana is my disciple, I can't always have time to teach her, plus she is a girl. I can't take care of it in many ways, so I want to send Lasana into your female army. Do you think I'd successful? Eh? Let your disciple enter the female soldier. He Vice Admiral frowned and said, as far as I know, your disciple is only 11 years old, and the youngest female soldier I trained is 16 years old. The difference is a bit big. Sakazuki said, Lasana is indeed young, but she is much more mature than ordinary children. She has not learned much at school, plus the incident that happened before, so I thought about it for a long time. It would be more appropriate to send her to the army for training, but she is a child after all, and only you are the most suitable among the various units in the headquarters. At this moment Garp also suddenly said, what's this, Xiaohei, isn't it just a kid? Just accept it. Sakazuki did not tell his secret, he also reciprocated, persuading the Crane Vice Admiral. Crane Vice Admiral ignored Garp, but pondered for a while, and then said, well, you will send her over tomorrow, I will take a look at it first. Good. Sakazuki was also quite happy to see the Crane Vice Admiral did not directly agree, but Lasana was definitely the best choice to train and learn on the side of the Crane Vice Admiral. After Vice Admiral left, Garp breathed a sigh of relief. Sakazuki said with a cold face, unlike some people, I only do things like crossing rivers and bridges. You. Garp pointed at Sakazuki, but Sakazuki ignored him and left quickly. On the next day, Sakazuki asked Lucas to go to school and say something, and then he took Lasana to Vice Admiral's place. Not to mention, after seeing Lasana herself, Vice Admiral's attitude changed dramatically. He liked it very much. Before Sakazuki could speak, he agreed to yesterday's request and was willing to let Lasana stay. In the next period of time, Sakazuki often trained with Garp and made rapid progress. As for Lasana, since Crane Vice Admiral accepted her, she has lived with Crane Vice Admiral. Even if Sakazuki wants to see her, she must pass. He Vice Admiral agreed, basically only once in 3 days. But there was one thing that made him feel relieved, because he found that after Lasana entered the women's barracks, she became more cheerful, and she was no longer as expressionless and indifferent as before. Later, he learned that Lasana was the youngest in the female barracks, and because of her face injuries, she was disfigured. The female soldiers loved her very much, and there were delicious and fun things, all of which were given to Lasana. Even Sakazuki can't give that kind of care. In this environment, Lasana will naturally be more cheerful and happier than before. During this period of time, Naval Headquarters has also undergone tremendous changes. Since Sengoku ascended to the position of Marine Marshal, after a plateau, he began to act and replaced generals in some important positions. In fact, Sengoku did not spend much energy on this matter, because after he replaced 2 or 3 people, many old people who were empty-handed in the past voluntarily asked Sengoku to resign, so Sengoku didn't take much effort and took most of the positions. Switching to his own confidant, he gradually took the Naval Headquarters master in his hands. Today's Marine, not to mention the outside branch, is the base of the headquarters. Sengoku has basically almost controlled it, and the Marine era belonging to Sengoku has officially arrived. Garp, I heard that you have been mingling with Sakazuki recently? Newcomer Marine Marshal Sengoku's office. This is the Marshal's office belonging to Sengoku. It is very spacious and luxurious. He lowered his head, while correcting documents, and asked Garp on the opposite side. Garp held the donut from Sakazuki, and said falteringly, well, yes, I'm doing sparring for that kid recently. Sengoku put aside the things in his hands and asked strangely, when did you have such a good relationship with him? Garp said, is there? Who do I have a bad relationship with? That kid is more acquainted recently, and it happened that I was fine, so I just practiced with him, haha. Sengoku, you don't know, but I beat him violently several times. But that kid is indeed a genius, and he is improving very fast. Is his talent really that good? Sengoku asked. Garp said with a straight face and said, it is not an exaggeration to say that among the new generation of Marine officers today, no one can compare to him. If Sakazuki is not, the limit of his development in the future will definitely not be below me. Unexpectedly, Garp had such a high opinion of Sakazuki. Sengoku's face was very solemn. He tapped his fingers gently on the tabletop, and only Garp's eating and tapping sound remained in the room. How about promoting Sakazuki to Admiral's position? Huh? What did you say? Sengoku spoke suddenly so that Garp didn't hear clearly, and asked with surprise on his face. Sengoku said, after I succeeded the position of Marshal, Marine Admiral's position was vacant. Originally, I didn't consider upgrading Marine Admiral so quickly, but now the new world structure is chaotic and the pirates are too rampant, and Marine Admiral is needed to deter the sea. Garp put down the donut in his hand, his face became serious, and asked, then what do you think? Sengoku frowned and said, Sakazuki has enough strength and good qualifications, but his personality is too extreme, and his age is too young. Whether it will be good or bad to push him to Marine Admiral is really hard to predict. Garp, based on your recent contact with him, do you think he is suitable for this position? Garp shook his head quickly and said, don't ask me about this. I don't know anything. You are Marshal Marine, and you are in charge. Knowing that this was the result, Sengoku sighed helplessly. He didn't expect Garp to give him advice. This guy's ability to avoid trouble is definitely one of the best. In such a critical matter, asking him is a question of nothing. He was indeed hesitating now. The Marine Admiral he had preferred was Pelusalino, and he was ready to report this decision to him, but Sakazuki was recommended to him not long ago, which made him hesitate. Sakazuki is an absolute hawk, not in line with his ideas, and Sakazuki is extremely tough and not very controllable. For a superior like him, he doesn't really like such subordinates. It's just that Sora recommended Sakazuki to him before leaving, and even 5 elders also issued a document to let him fill up the Marine Admiral as soon as possible, and also emphasized the name of Sakazuki. Although there is no mandatory order, his attitude is obvious. All sorts of circumstances made him hesitate, and there was a scene of questioning Garp. Sengoku also knows that asking Garp is for nothing, but now he can't make up his mind and needs someone to push him. As for making up the 3 Admiral, he never thought about how easy it is to make up Marine Admiral. He was not prepared to upgrade the 2 Marine Admiral all at once. Even considering Pelusalino before, it was just a consideration. Did not think about promoting him to Marine Admiral soon. But now that Sora speaks, 5 elders also gave orders. Even if he must seriously consider it, but he only wants to promote 1 Marine Admiral. As for why he does not promote 2 consecutively, it is because he still wants to leave an Admiral. The position of Vice Admiral below gave the Vice Admiral hope. Fighting for Admiral's position makes it more convenient for him to lead Marine. For the ambitious Marine General, the position of Marine Admiral is definitely a fatal temptation. No one can resist except for people like Garp. He uses this position as a bait, and no one is worried about him. Used by him. This is his strategy. Sakazuki, Sakazuki, Sakazuki. Sengoku leaned on the chair and kept chanting Sakazuki's name, undecided in his heart. Garp on the opposite side saw Sengoku's appearance, and couldn't help shaking his head and sighing. As an old man for decades, he certainly knew Sengoku's embarrassment at this time. At the same time, he was also very shocked. Sakazuki had such a big energy that he could embarrass the new Marine Marshal, Sengoku, but he knew very well that Sengoku would make a decision soon, but what the decision was. That way, he couldn't be sure. Choose one. Choose Sakazuki or Paluzolino, or none of them, but in this case, your pressure will be too great. Sengoku, Marshal Marine's position is not easy to sit in. Sakazuki Vice Admiral, the Marshal wants you to meet him. Sakazuki was reading a book in the room. Since Ohara pulled back a bunch of books, he took a few books that he was interested in and kept them, and took a look when he was free. Putting down the book, he asked, "What is the Marshal looking for?" The Marshal didn't say, "Just let you go and find him." The soldier who gave the order replied. "I see." Sengoku is looking for himself at this time, and Sakazuki is really puzzled, because now is when Sengoku is busy, how can he have the time to find him? After finishing his clothes, he went to Sengoku's office alone, knocked on the door and entered. "Sakazuki, you are here, sit down." Seeing Sakazuki coming in, Sengoku put down his work and pointed to the opposite chair. After Sakazuki sat down, Sengoku asked, "I called you here alone this time, because there is a very important thing that needs to be discussed with you." "You speak." Sakazuki said. Sengoku said with a serious face, "That's it. First just became Marine Marshal, and I haven't sorted it out yet, so I need help urgently. It was precisely because of my promotion that the Marine Admiral position was vacant. Originally, the number of Marine Admiral was not there is no mandatory requirement, but at least 2 are required, and 3 are also fine. So as a result, 1 or 2 Marine Admiral is now missing." Having said that, he paused for a while, and when he saw Sakazuki still remaining calm, he nodded slightly in his heart. It's just that Sengoku didn't know. Although Sakazuki was calm on the surface, his heart was shaken. He didn't expect that Sengoku would tell him about this, and he didn't know what Sengoku meant. Discuss it. What to discuss? At the same time, he was also a little surprised. Through the anime, he always felt that Marine Admiral should be 3 people, so it was natural to bring it in with 3 people, but now listening to Sengoku's tone, it does not seem to be the case. Admiral does not necessarily have to be 3 people. 2 are the same. Is this the history of naval headquarters? Regarding this point, he hasn't really studied it yet, and Admiral is probably a hard and fast rule he thinks. Sengoku continued. The importance of Marine Admiral to Marine is unquestionable. It represents Marinea's highest combat power and is an important presence to deter criminals in the world. Therefore, it cannot remain vacant. I have considered it for a long time and I am now qualified to serve. There are not many people in Admiral's position, and there are only a few people in full play. Sakazuki didn't speak, and he was a little nervous. What did Sengoku mean by telling him this? Do you want to promote him, or do you not want to promote? I thought for a long time, and finally decided to only promote a Marine Admiral for the time being, but there are a lot of options, and it is related to the future of Marine, so I have never made a decision. To tell you, I decided to promote Paluzolino at the beginning, but many people recommended you to me. I am also very pleased. I called you over today just to ask you if I let you become a Marine Admiral. Do you have the confidence to assume the responsibility of this position? Can you fulfill the justice of Marine, and always implement the justice of Marine? Sengoku asked in a deep voice. Sakazuki's spirit was shocked. Although Sengoku only decided to promote a Marine Admiral, which surprised him, this situation is like a conversation before promotion. Since Sengoku asked this, it means that his hopes are very high. His answer, as long as Sengoku is satisfied, there should be a great possibility of becoming Marine Admiral. Justice will never be violated, and I will always implement justice. He felt that what he needed at this time was not gorgeous rhetoric, what Sengoku wanted was an attitude. Sengoku stared at Sakazuki for a long time, and finally nodded and said, "Okay. I believe what you said, the position of Marine Admiral will be given to you. I will let you be promoted in the near future. You will be prepared for this period of time. Good." Sakazuki nodded solemnly, and replied, "I will never let them marshal you down." After leaving Sengoku's office, Sakazuki was very excited. After waiting for so long, he finally became a Marine Admiral. This was his most important moment in the past 2 years. No matter how calm he is very excited. As for Sengoku didn't choose Paluzolino, he didn't care too much. Who knows what Sengoku thinks, and he remembers as if in the comics, Paluzolino should have been promoted to Admiral after the Murloc freed the slaves. So Sengoku promoted him to Admiral. It is not that he grabbed Paluzolino's position. Maybe it was Akainu who became Admiral first in the comics, who can tell. Anyway, the most important thing now is that the person who will become Marine Admiral is him, and he is the winner. Soon after Sengoku talked to Sakazuki, rumors about Sakazuki's promotion to Marine Admiral flowed out, and soon spread throughout the naval headquarters, causing great shock. In fact, it is not very surprising that someone wants to be promoted to Marine Admiral. After Sengoku became Marine Marshal, this matter was already destined. Sengoku has been called Marine Marshal for some time, so I will be promoted at this time. Marine Admiral, it can be said that the timing is very suitable and it has passed the collision period very well. It's just surprising that Sengoku is actually preparing to promote Sakazuki to Marine Admiral this time, which is a result that most people did not expect. Many people thought that if Sengoku would promote a Marine Admiral, some of the more powerful veterans should have a greater chance. Even Paluzolino, the young and strong Vice Admiral, is also good, but they did not expect Sengoku to choose. With Sakazuki, you must know that Sakazuki was still banned not long ago, but it hasn't been long since it was released. This incident caused dissatisfaction among some people. They all went to Sengoku, hoping that Sengoku could think about it again. After all, Sakazuki had just been lifted from the ban for a long time, and he had not made any great achievements, so he was directly promoted to Marine Admiral is really far-fetched. But even if someone objected, it couldn't change the outcome, because promoting Sakazuki to Marine Admiral is not just Sengoku's will. Sora, who has become the commander of the army, has expressed his opinions. Coupled with the opinions of 5 elders, Sengoku just doesn't want to be at this time. To leave a bad impression, he must promote Sarkis. This is a kind of helpless political compromise. 4 emperors appear early, but they have not yet fully grown. Both the world government and Sora feel that Marine has a relatively large advantage, so they are more inclined to promote aggressive hardliners like Sakazuki. Sakazuki naturally understood these news, but he didn't care. This world is like this. It's impossible for everyone to look at you. Even a saint can't do this. All he has to do is to ignore these people. Anyway, these people would not have much influence on him. But one thing that he didn't expect was that the incident of him becoming a Marine Admiral had aroused a high degree of agreement among the ordinary soldiers in this department. Basically, 70% to 80% of the ordinary soldiers were talking about it, hoping that he would be able to becoming a Marine Admiral. The approval rate is much higher than that of other candidates. Sakazuki was surprised when he heard this. When did he have such prestige in Marine? He didn't know what was going on until he sent someone to investigate. The reason for this is because of the impact of the incident more than a year ago, because he distributed the pirate spoils to his soldiers, although in the end there is no evidence to prove everything, but under various spreads, many people think that he did it. Especially when he followed him, in addition to his own private soldiers, there were also some other crew members and soldiers who also received a lot of benefits from Sakazuki afterwards. Because the incident was a lot of trouble and word of mouth, everyone knows that, although Sakazuki was punished, his prestige among the grassroots soldiers has been greatly improved, even if Sakazuki treats it. Soldiers are known for being stern, and they may be able to seek welfare for soldiers. This is what the grassroots soldiers care about most. Although Sakazuki didn't do it deliberately, it was because he gained a lot of prestige among ordinary soldiers. When the final order was issued, it was the 3rd day after Sengoku talked with Sakazuki. On this day, Naval Headquarters announced to the world that in addition to the new Marshal Sengoku, the new Marine Admiral was officially in place. Akainu. Sakazuki is codenamed Akainu. Since then, Sakazuki has become the youngest Marine Admiral in the history of Naval Headquarters, the 34-year-old Marine Admiral. In Naval Headquarters, Sakazuki's Admiral succession ceremony was also very grand. Marine Rookie Marshal Sengoku personally awarded him the honor, and countless Marine soldiers watched this grand scene. Sakazuki, from today, you are the new Marine Admiral. I hope you can uphold justice, be strict with yourself, lead by example, and don't live up to the world's expectations of you. On the makeshift high platform, Sengoku faced the thousands of Marine soldiers below and spoke for more than 10 minutes before speaking solemnly to Sakazuki. Sakazuki stood in front of Sengoku, turned around with a serious face, and saluted all the Marines. Roar. The Marines below burst into shocking shouts, all looking at Sakazuki above with excitement, yelling his name. Sakazuki Admiral! Sakazuki Admiral! Sakazuki scanned the entire naval headquarters with his right hand on his chest, his expression solemn and extremely excited. Before today, I am not just Sakazuki, but the real Akainu. Akainu belongs to me alone. Sakazuki, no, it should be Akainu now, shouting in his heart. Although he is still him, there is no change, but he belongs to an outsider after all. Sakazuki is the name of the original body. Although he inherited all this, he still has a little bit of discomfort from the heart. But now it is different. He is not only Sakazuki, but also Akainu. This title belongs to him alone and has nothing to do with the original body. He likes the title Akainu better than Sakazuki. Unexpectedly, Marshal Sengoku would choose Sakazuki this time. I don't know what he thinks. Sakazuki is still just a hairy boy. Can he serve as Marine Admiral? An elderly Marine Vice Admiral looked at the spirited Akainu above, and said very dissatisfied. There are also several veteran Vice Admiral around him. They all have the same idea. I thought that this time some of them could become Marine Admiral. Who would have thought that such a result would happen? This made them all decisions on Sengoku. Feeling dissatisfied. But not everyone thinks that way. One of them sighed faintly. Don't you understand it? Sengoku did it deliberately. He wants to downplay our power, don't you feel that lately? Several people stopped talking. How could they not feel that Sengoku has recently been continuously promoting young and middle-aged generals? The meaning is self-evident. Many generals such as Vice Admiral and Rear Admiral who have occupied important positions in the past have silently resigned. A few are just unwilling and still hold a glimmer of hope. But now it seems that such hope is very slim. Unless they lean against Sengoku, they will be cleansed by Sengoku sooner or later. Ah. Marshal Sengoku actually chose Sakazuki. This position should have belonged to you, Pelusalino Vice Admiral. Pelusalino's lieutenant was very dissatisfied, looked at Sakazuki full of resentment, and said to Pelusalino in front of him. Pelusalino chuckled and said, Sakazuki is also very good, and he is also qualified. That being said, the fists under his coat were clenched tightly together, showing the unrest in his heart. Regardless of his usual lazy appearance, but how could he not be tempted by the position of Marine Admiral? He always felt that he had a great opportunity, but he did not expect that the result was very disappointing, and he was picked by Akainu in the same period. The fruit is gone. His lieutenant whispered. I heard he used some special methods. To shut up. Pelusalino suddenly turned around and yelled, and then said coldly, don't say anything like this in the future. His lieutenant trembled and realized that something was wrong. Akainu was already admiral now. If this word were spread and heard, he would be miserable. Why, are you envious? Kuzan. In front of the crowd, Zephyr looked at Kuzan's envious expression and asked. Facing his teacher, Kuzan did not hide it, nodded, and said, well, but I believe that sooner or later, I will get to this point. Becoming Marine Admiral is also the goal he has been pursuing, so now seeing Sakazuki become Admiral, and the youngest Admiral in history, when he is respected and admired by countless people, he will naturally envy him in his heart. Zephyr said, your potential is not worse than Sakazuki, but you are still young and lack qualifications, but I believe it will not be long before you can achieve your goals. Kuzan nodded confidently. As a frozen fruit-capable person, coupled with excellent talents, he does not think he will be worse than Sakazuki, he is only worse by seniority and age. In fact, there is one thing he didn't know. Not long ago, Zephyr personally approached Sengoku, just like Sora, except that he recommended not Sakazuki but Kuzan, and at the cost of his abdication, let Kuzan inherit his position. It's just that his recommendation was rejected by Sengoku. Sengoku's reason is very simple. Kuzan's qualifications are not enough. Compared with Sakazuki, his resume is not enough, and his supporters are far behind Sakazuki. As Zephyr is far from enough. It is also helpless to know that he promotes Sakazuki. After all, it is the current army commander Sora who recommends Sakazuki, and the secret support of 5 elders. Sengoku also said one point, that is, Marine Admiral is extremely important. Sakazuki can be said to have played his own reputation and has a great deterrent in the pirate world. In comparison, Kuzan is a bit worse, and he also listens. Having said that, Kuzan was defeated once in Sakazuki's hands. Moreover, if you become Marine Admiral all of a sudden, it is easy for unexpected things to happen, so Sengoku hopes that Zephyr can serve for a while. After all, his name is very loud and can support the scene. Because Akainu's promotion is a very exciting thing, Naval Headquarters held a grand banquet, and everyone cheered and shouted. To be honest, even Sengoku did not expect that Akainu would have such prestige among the ordinary soldiers in his headquarters, but he did do things. With the promotion of Akainu this time, all the soldiers were rare to be presumptuous. This event lasted until late at night. It was also the largest event held in naval headquarters in these years. Basically all soldiers were very satisfied. Sengoku also received the desired effect. The common soldiers recognized him very much. Big improvement. After being promoted to Marine Admiral, Akainu was obviously much busier than before. Many people came to visit him. There is no doubt that he is now the #1 and leader of the Marine Hawks, except for those who are very targeted by the faction. Besides, basically everyone who can come has come. This kind of busy days lasted for several days, which made Akainu, who has always liked quietness, been very uncomfortable. It was a monk for a while, but now it has become a crowded city. The contrast between the front and the back is too great, and Akainu is aware of power. The benefits. When he used to be Marine Vice Admiral, even in his heyday, he was not as popular as he is now, because at that time he was only Vice Admiral and his power was still very limited, but now he is Marine Admiral, and Marine Admiral has far more power. Super Marine Vice Admiral will naturally be flattered by more people. Not long after the Akainu Marine Admiral, this matter spread throughout the world. As the most deterrent military force in the sea, Marine is definitely one of the most powerful forces. Marine Admiral is Marinea's most important combat power and appearance. Once there is a change, it will inevitably attract attention, not to mention the replacement of Marine Admiral this time as the youngest admiral ever in naval headquarters. Relatively speaking, the Four Seas is a little better. It is far away from the Grand Line and Marine Admiral is also very far away for them. But for the people of the Grand Line, this is a very important event, especially for the pirates. More importantly, because they are mortal enemies with Marine. New World. Whitebeard was holding the newspaper and looking at the photo in the newspaper. The man in a red suit, a justice coat and a hat, laughed and said, "That magma imp has finally become Marine Admiral. Sengoku's vision is pretty good." Marco said on the side, "The new Marine Admiral is such a young person. I don't know what Sengoku thinks. He just became Marine Marshal, and he has the courage to break the stereotypes and promote such a young man. The people become the symbol of Marine." Whitebeard laughed and said, "Gu la la la. The old guy Sengoku has known me well. I know him very well. As the new Marine Marshal, he must have something different in doing this, but don't care about them, they still threaten not to us." Even Whitebeard couldn't think of why Akainu became Marine Admiral, and thought it was Sengoku deliberately. Today's new world is still as chaotic as it was more than a year ago. Because of Akainu, the 4 emperors were born ahead of schedule. But after so long, the only recognized emperor who can stand by is still Whitebeard. 1. Whitebeard, the head of the 4 emperors, is now recognized by the New World pirates as the #1 big pirate. Even the world government has greatly increased the bounty for him, becoming the second only to Monkey Da Dragon among the most wanted by the world government. Dangerous person. Bounty of 2 billion Baileys. How high is the Whitebeard bounty in the anime? No one can accurately say, but now Whitebeard, the bounty is 2 billion Baileys. Even if it is a dragon, the bounty at this time is only 2.2 billion Baileys. Far from reaching the height of the subsequent 5 billion Baileys. As the only emperor of the New World, Whitebeard naturally has the highest prestige. Over the past year or so, the Whitebeard pirate group has developed rapidly. A large pirate group is attached, and there are countless small pirate groups. In addition, nearly 10% of New World's territory is protected by Whitebeard, providing him with amazing income. It is not an exaggeration to say that the Whitebeard pirate group is now the leader of the pirates who dominate the sea. Overlord in the sense. Don't think that 10% of the site is very small. In fact, this is a very staggering number. Although 3 legendary pirates have been circulating before the era of the pirates to dominate the New World, it is actually not the case. At that time, the 3 legendary pirates dominated New World. They could only be regarded as cross New World. It was difficult to meet opponents. They were far from ruling New World, because they did not have so many manpower. The strongest. But now Whitebeard literally occupies 10% of the site. It can continue to collect protection fees by protecting the people on these sites, and let these places be planted with the pirate flag of the Whitebeard pirate group. This is true. Occupation is not like the previous situation of running around, walking one place and hitting another place. Today's Whitebeard pirates can be said to have embarked on a road of rapid development, which can pose a great threat to the world, so the world government will give him a bounty of 2 billion Baileys. The current Whitebeard pirates, it was definitely too strong before, even a bit stronger than the strongest Golden Lion flying pirate group. In addition to the Whitebeard pirate group, in New World, 2 more powerful pirate groups have recently appeared. They are the Charlotte family that developed in the form of a family, the Big Mom pirate group, and the so-called Beasts. Kaido, founded by Beasts pirates. These two pirate groups are definitely the two most promising pirate groups in New World to become the king of pirates. Charlotte Linlin and Kaido also have the highest calls to become the second four emperors, but they have not yet gained the other pirate forces. It's just unanimous approval. For Akainu, whom he had always remembered before, became Marine Admiral, Whitebeard was amazed just because he became admiral at such a young age, because regardless of his age, he had met Akainu and knew Akainu's power and potential. Now after so long, Akainu must have grown a lot, and becoming a Marine Admiral is also fully qualified. Father, the Kaido and Big Mom are making a lot of trouble recently. It seems that they all want to ascend to the four emperors position as soon as possible. At this time, Marine has made such a big noise. What might they think about it? I have to guard against it, Marco said to Whitebeard solemnly. Whitebeard laughed and said, the two younger generations are a bit interesting. As for Marine, you don't have to worry about them. The New World is no longer the New World. They want to re-enter the New World and reshuffle their cards. They are still far away. Woolen cloth. Ida not that he brags, but that the fact. Now his power has increased greatly. He alone is no longer afraid of naval headquarters. If one or two emperors appear together, even the world government will be very difficult. Dealing with it, that's why he has no fear, and even if other things are aside, he has never feared anyone. But what you said makes sense. I can't help but guard against it. I understand that guy Sengoku. He has just ascended to the position of Marine Marshal. If he doesn't make any movement, it is not Sengoku. As for the two of Big Mom and Kaido, guys, don't worry about them, let them make trouble, it's better to make this new world messier. For Whitebeard, there are not many people in the world who can make him jealous. Although Charlotte Linlin and Kaido are very good, they can only be regarded as juniors to him. If even they need to be jealous, then he too can be regarded as alive again. Marco nodded to express his understanding, and then said, everyone has been very excited recently, fighting everywhere, should we let everyone stop? Whitebeard thought for a moment, and said, well, their movements have been a bit big recently. New World can't be a human world. Be careful. There is nothing wrong with being cautious. In fact, for Whitebeard, he doesn't care about the size of the site. For him, the most important thing is his relatives, but in order to be able to expand Whitebeard's reputation, they will be so crazy to compete for the site, that it is also because of their madness, there will be the momentum of the Whitebeard pirates. In addition to the Whitebeard pirate group, the other major forces of New World also paid attention to the high-level transformation of naval headquarters. Of course, the pirates of New World are okay. The pirates of the first half of the Grand Line are in this section. Time has shrunk, not dare to provoke naval headquarters at this time. Sakazuki, congratulations on your promotion to Marine Admiral. Marine Admiral has many responsibilities and tasks. During this time, Akainu has been familiar with it, but even so, it took several days to fully understand it. Then it ushered in a busy period. Today is a breathtaking respite. Just in time, Doberman came to him. Akainu let out a sigh of relief and said, this period of time has made me so busy. Doberman chuckled and said, I know you are busy, so I came to you at this time. What do you think about the things I told you before? A long time ago, Doberman told him that he hopes to be able to make good friends with him. After he becomes Marine Admiral, he can be transferred to his command. Now he is promoted to Marine Admiral, so he is not polite. Come today. This is for this matter. Akainu nodded and said, no problem. He has never been stingy with friends. Although Doberman said so bluntly, it did not make him a little bit resistant, because Doberman never stayed away from him even when he was down, and often asked him to drink, chat, and don't avoid others. Now that he is promoted, he will naturally not forget the other party. There is a location that you must be very interested in. How about the location of the Military Investigation Department? Marine is one of the largest military institutions under the world government. It is composed of multiple departments, such as headquarters, general staff, logistics, naval forces, directly affiliated colleges, military investigation departments, and so on. The headquarters is naturally the department directly under the naval headquarters Marshal Sengoku, and has the highest authority. The head is Sengoku, and his confidants are his henchmen, executing orders and issuing orders. The general staff is now under the control of Vice Admiral. The departments within the directly affiliated colleges are all led by Marine Admiral Zephyr, and the rest of the departments have their own heads. This time Akainu was promoted to Admiral, but was arranged to control the Military Investigation Department and other departments. It is also very interesting to say that nearly 2 years ago, Akainu and his subordinates were investigated by the Military Investigation Department. As a result, when he turned around, he actually became the chief officer of the military investigation department. When Sengoku announced the incident, the vice admiral who escorted him at the time chose to leave the department without hesitation. The remaining generals were either transferred or showed allegiance to him, making him completely take control of this department that is vital to Marine. The Military Investigation Department is responsible for overseeing Marines' internal and investigating soldiers who violated laws and disciplines. It is a department that nobody wants to provoke. Perhaps Sengoku gave this department to him because of his personality and way of doing things. In short, no matter what the reason is, he took over this department, and he will naturally manage it, but he is now Marine Admiral. It is impossible to manage this department all the time, so he must find a trustworthy confidant to manage the Military Investigation Department. Although Ghost Spider is good, but his qualifications are not enough, and as his private army deputy, he has just been promoted to Marine Vice Admiral, and he has to re-expand the scale of the private army. Naturally, it is impossible to have time to manage the Military Investigation Department. Although a lot of Marine Vice Admiral has shown his favor recently, in addition to his private army, Doberman is the one he trusts the most. Doberman is an absolute hawk like him, plus the relationship between the two of them is very good, so there will be no problems if such an important department is handed over to him. Doberman certainly knew how powerful Akainu was, but he was shocked when he heard that he was about to transfer himself to the Military Investigation Department. You mean, transfer me to the Military Investigation Department? Akainu nodded and said, well, this department is the main department assigned to me by Marshal Sengoku, and it is also my most powerful department. You also know the importance of this department. If something goes wrong, it will do much to Marine influence, so I must find a trustworthy person, and that person is you. As long as it is human, there is selfishness, even among Marine, who is not selfish. As a deterrent department, the Military Investigation Department is used to deter those who violate the law and discipline. It will not necessarily punish all those who violate the law and discipline, but with its existence, those who want to violate the law and discipline will have concerns. Doberman was shocked. As an old Marine, he certainly knew the importance of this department. Even among all the departments of Naval Headquarters, the Military Investigation Department was ranked in the forefront, second only to the headquarters and the General Staff. What kind of trust Akainu gave him this department? Can you lead this department well? Akainu asked with a serious face. Even if Doberman had a good relationship with him, if Doberman's answer made him unsatisfied, he would not dare to hand over this important department to him. Doberman looked solemnly, and said solemnly, yes, I will do my best and I will never disappoint your expectations. If the relationship between him and Akainu was considered to be a friend before, after saying this, he officially fell to Akainu, which is also considered to be allegiance. Akainu immediately showed satisfaction and said, okay, I believe you. You can take the post tomorrow with my transfer document. I give you the greatest power. No need to worry about anyone, as long as someone dares to break the law, no matter what. Don't be merciful to anyone. Doberman looked at Akainu, a strange color flashed in his eyes, and said, I know what you mean. Although Akainu didn't say anything, how could he not understand what Akainu meant? Some things Akainu didn't come up with, but he was okay. This department is extremely powerful and can do many things that he wanted to do but couldn't do before. Of course he knew what to do to best benefit Akainu. The huge naval headquarters has many factions. He has now decided to go with Akainu. Naturally, everything must be based on Akainu's interests. Give it a peach, and give it a reward. Akainu smiled, and then said, Marshal Sengoku has something to look for me, I'll go there first. After bidding farewell to Doberman, he went straight to the office where Marshal Marine Sengoku was. Boom. Come in. When Akainu walked into the office, he saw Sengoku sitting there correcting documents at a glance, especially when he saw the pile of documents in Sengoku's office, the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. It is said that Marshal Marine has the power to do so, but not everyone is qualified to be in this position. If you don't say anything else, just look at the files in front of you. If it is an ordinary person, who can be busy? Sakazuki, you are here, sit down. Sengoku motioned to Akainu to sit down first, and then stopped after correcting the document he was looking at. He looked at Akainu and said, calling you here is something important to tell you. You said. Akainu said. You have been Marine Admiral for a few days, and you already have a certain understanding of your responsibilities. You should also know that Marine Admiral is in a different position from your previous Vice Admiral. As the strongest force to deter the sea, it is impossible to stay forever in this department. Akainu nodded. Of course, he understood that Marine Admiral is not a mascot, and naturally it is impossible to stay at Marineford forever. As the new admiral, it's not enough to let the world know about your existence. Although I have promoted you to Marine Admiral by exception, you must also let the world know that you have this qualification. You represent Marinea's strongest combat power, so you must make a difference. I also just succeeded. As a marshal, it is naturally impossible for me to leave Marineford, so the task of showing Marine's power can only be entrusted to you. I decided to send an inspection of the sea for a period of 1 year. Akainu raised her brows and asked in surprise, inspect the sea? He knows that after becoming Marine Admiral, he must do important tasks, because the previous Marine Admiral is also the same, but they have only just succeeded now. Sengoku is so eager to send them out, which can be different from the past. Different. At this moment, there were countless thoughts in his heart, not because he was gloomy, but because he also knew his situation. The reason why Sengoku promoted him to Marine Admiral was definitely not entirely his own last wish. It comes from Sora, or a higher meaning, so when Sengoku faced him, his attitude was somewhat different. It stands to reason that as he was promoted almost at the same time as Sengoku, and he was also the youngest Marine Admiral, as the Marshal Sengoku should take the initiative to draw him in and turn him into a confidant, but in fact Sengoku did not do that. After he became Admiral, I haven't looked for him. How could he not feel what it means? And what does it mean to patrol the sea? Do you lead the army to patrol and investigate the sea? Is this someone who can't wait to bring him out of the rhythm of naval headquarters? Sengoku naturally did not know that Akainu had so many thoughts in his mind for a moment. Seeing Akainu's full face of doubt, he explained. It means that you will be allowed to inspect the sea as Marine Admiral. It is aimed at illegal and chaotic elements. It is the power of pirates. One is to eliminate the pirates, and the other is to expand your name. Let more people know the reputation of the new Marine Admiral. Akainu understood right away that it was to let him use force to earn fame. As the so-called new officials took office, Sengoku and he had just succeeded. At this time, some prestige is really needed to expand his reputation. Naturally, Sengoku cannot be a marshal. Leaving, this task can only be handed over to him. Sengoku continued. The world can be divided into 4 regions in total, the 4 seas in the first half of the Grand Line, and the other is the New World. The 4 seas in the first half of the Grand Line are under the rule of Marine, and the power of the pirates is relatively weak. There is no need to dispatch Admiral directly for the time being. In the case of New World, the area is definitely relatively small, but the enemies we face are not comparable to those in the first half of the Grand Line. It is a paradise for pirates and it is extremely dangerous. So I thought for a long time, ready to transfer you to New World. The choice was made without prior notice. This is indeed a bit unfair to Akainu, but Sengoku also has his own ideas. He is Marshal Marine, and there is no need to discuss with Akainu to issue such an order. But Sengoku is right. In the first half of Sea High and Grand Line, Marine can be said to control most of it. Even if there is an enemy, Marine Vice Admiral level generals can be sent to suppress. Even if there are more powerful ones, Naval Headquarters still sits on the Grand Line. In the first half, staff can be deployed at any time. But New World is different. Naval Headquarters' control of New World is already low to a certain level, and strong talents must be able to open the situation. Akainu was not angry. He understood what Sengoku meant. It was because of him that Marine's G1 branch in New World was forced to withdraw from New World. Now letting him go again, I'm afraid it also meant that he would make up for it. Although it is dangerous, there is motivation only when there are difficulties. He replied with a serious face. No problem, but I have one condition. Seeing that Akainu agreed without saying a word, Sengoku was also very satisfied. Although he didn't like Akainu very much, he had to say that Akainu was more like a soldier than others. What conditions? You said. Akainu said, after I enter New World, I hope to mobilize all of New World's forces. I don't want to be constrained, and I need to make up for the missing of my private army as soon as possible. Sengoku thought about it. Now Marine's force in New World is not strong, and the generals of the G5 branch are still Akainu's friends. Even if Akainu is in power, there is no problem. This is no problem. You are now Marine Admiral. This is your right, but I hope you still have to think about it when you do things. Things like the 4 emperors mentioned before will not happen again. Speaking of it, he was really afraid that Akainu would cause a big accident again, but this time it was for the benefit of Marine, and he was a little hopeful that Akainu would do something, but the 4 emperors' proposal was too bold in his opinion. So he didn't want Akainu to do such a thing again. Akainu was also helpless. Although he had made the decision to propose the 4 emperors of the pirates a little hastily, he did not make no contribution. At least he brought a long period of stability to Marine, allowing the pirates to kill each other, New World, although it became bloody, it was more of a fight between pirates. Why does Sengoku see the problem but not the benefit? Perhaps this is the reason why the two are not the same faction and have different ideas. In short, he doesn't want to explain too much. As for your private army, Sengoku thought for a while, and then said, I can give you the right to choose the person you like, but only if they are willing to follow you and can't force it. The private army is the prerogative of admiral and vice admiral. Of course he will not stop it, but he warned him. In his opinion, although Akainu obeys the order and looks like a soldier, but sometimes likes to use the sword to slant forward. How to like it? I see. When do you want me to act? Akainu responded. Sengoku said, you can arrange things on your hands and act in 7 days. This time you are allowed to bring enough manpower. In addition to your private army, plus 2,000 soldiers to make up for 5,000 people, plus 5 ships, large warship. Akainu went to New World to represent the face of naval headquarters. If there are few people, he can't deal with the crazy pirates of New World. After Akainu left Sengoku's office, his eyes became very solemn. New World? After nearly 2 years, I finally set foot on the sea again. I really look forward to it. The last trip to New World was relatively smooth at the beginning, but later because of the Whitebeard pirates, he was forced to leave New World and was almost severely punished for it. So, the last time the trip to New World was a failure. This time, after 2 years, he will finally enter the sea again. He is naturally more excited, and this time is different from last time. He is now Marine Admiral, with the greatest autonomy and can fully represent Marine. When the ghost spider was found, Akainu asked bluntly, how is the selection of private soldiers? Because he was promoted to Marine Admiral, all the people around him were naturally so. One person gained the Tao, and the chickens and dogs ascended to heaven. As a deputy, the ghost spider was appointed by Sengoku to become the Marine Vice Admiral, and he was also the highest-ranking person under his command. In addition to him, 2 of the 5 previous colonels were also promoted to Marine Commodore by him. As Marine Admiral, the highest rank of soldiers he can directly appoint as Commodore. Both Rear Admiral and Vice Admiral need to follow up. Sengoku reports, and then Sengoku conducts a comprehensive investigation with the general staff and other departments to see whether the credit, qualifications, resume, etc. are eligible for promotion. The ghost spider can be promoted within a few days because he is Akainu's lieutenant, and his resume meets the requirements, so he will be so fast. Otherwise, if he changes to another person, it will be difficult to approve it within half a year. It is his right to promote Commodore. As long as he reports to the headquarters, he can basically succeed. Of course, there is a limit on the number of people. He can directly promote up to 5 people, and then only have the right to propose. Also, Lucas, his guard captain, was also promoted to Marine Commodore. This is definitely a qualitative leap for the young Lucas. He was already Commodore in his early 30s, and he may not have the chance to be promoted to Marine Vice Admiral. After the ghost spider was promoted to Vice Admiral, he was naturally very excited. The years of struggle finally did not go in vain. He was very fortunate to be Akainu's private army lieutenant. Otherwise, he wanted to be promoted without personal connections and backstage. Marine Vice Admiral, I'm afraid there will be a chance after another 10 years of struggle, so he is naturally very grateful to Akainu and more loyal. Ordinary soldiers have been selected. When I heard that you were going to select private troops, the soldiers in the headquarters wanted to join like crazy. I selected the most outstanding 2,000 people. Speaking of this, the ghost spider is also full of excitement. Now Akainu has become an admiral, and his prestige in Marine has increased dramatically. It is not the same as before, so it is very easy for him to choose soldiers. Ordinary soldiers are easy to choose, but it is difficult to choose a general-level person. I have promoted all of our original personnel to non-commissioned officers, and the worst is also a sergeant. Let them each bring newcomers, and the rest are also promoted and distributed. Come on. What the private army lacks are generals and school officers. I don't know what your requirements are, so I don't dare to choose people randomly. Very obvious. Not to mention that Marine Admiral's private generals have fewer soldiers than other generals, but this is Marine Admiral's confidant, becoming Marine Admiral's private generals. This is a very amazing resume. In the future, promotion and wealth will definitely be better than other generals. To be more valued, the more important thing is to rely on the backing of Marine Admiral. Of course, there will be countless people who want to join. Where are the people I told you before? Akainu asked. The ghost spider replied. Storoberry refused the invitation. He has a good relationship with Paluzolino, so it is not surprising to refuse. Dalmija also refused, and Vice Admiral, the flying squirrel, also refused. Akainu's face changed slightly. He knew that he was not well connected among the senior leaders of naval headquarters, but he did not expect to invite a few people in a row, but none of them agreed, and the others were just fine. Flying Squirrels are also Vice Admiral of the Hawks. Actually refused his invitation, which made him a little dissatisfied. However, he somewhat understood that the Flying Squirrel rejected him, either because he himself had ambitions and didn't want to live under him, or he didn't want to be marked, and he was regarded by others as his own faction. To put it ugly, he just wanted to have both sides. Shin Cha, Nin can't help laughing. No one knows the future situation of naval headquarters better than him. Even if Flying Squirrels are ambitious, Vice Admiral's position is at the top. He is unwilling to join his camp today, and he will regret it in the future. Day. The twisted melon was not sweet, and Akainu did not think about those who rejected him, but took out the order that Sengoku gave him. This is a transfer order from Marshal Sengoku. Only the name is left unfilled. You choose some generals who are willing to join my private army. They are not willing to come. Some are willing to join. By the way, go to Harrington Vice Admiral. My private army also has a position for Vice Admiral. See if he is willing to come over and help me. The Ghost Spider took the transfer order. With these transfer orders, those who want to join, but the boss is not willing to let it go, can be transferred easily. Harrington Vice Admiral, are you going to give him that position? Harrington Vice Admiral was the leader of the New World Marine G1 branch at the time, that is, the Vice Admiral who was defeated by Whitebeard and then rescued by them. Since returning to naval headquarters, he has retreated to the second line. Ghost Spiders don't understand why Akainu to find him. You must know that a Marine Admiral's private army can only have 2 Vice Admiral, but there are many people staring at this position. Akainu's mouth showed a sneer, and said, how do you think I got my position as Admiral? Not to mention that I didn't make amazing credits. It's hard to be convinced just because of my age, let alone ours. This Marshal Sengoku doesn't value me very much. I can become Admiral because of my former Marshal Kong. You mean, Sengoku promoted you to Marine Admiral? He didn't hear Akainu talk about this secret, so he was very shocked. He was also surprised before that Sengoku would make Akainu a Marine Admiral. This was something he hadn't expected at all. He didn't expect that there was such a hidden secret. Akainu said, that's it, to put it bluntly, this is a transaction. Sora's transaction with Sengoku, my transaction with Sora, and perhaps there are more unknown things in it. This alternation of power, naturally, there are all kinds of complexities in the middle. As the ultimate beneficiary of this incident, he sees it more clearly than anyone else, but although it involves a lot of it, it is a fact that he has become Marine Admiral, so he took the initiative to recruit Harrington, who had retired to the second line, to his own private in the army. It is to show good to the heir. After all, Harrington is an empty henchman. He recruited Harrington, which is also considered a favor. The Ghost Spider listened, but did not speak. He is not a fool. Neither Sora nor Sengoku can talk about it, so it is best to shut up at this time. You don't have to think too much. I became Admiral. It is more important than anything else. The world looks at strength. Even if it is to perform justice, there must be enough strength, Akainu said. The Ghost Spider nodded in agreement, and said, I'll talk about Harrington Vice Admiral right away. Akainu said, use the fastest speed, in 7 days, we will leave for the New World again. The Ghost Spider's face changed, and he asked in amazement, go to New World? What's the situation? Didn't you just become Admiral? Why did you go to New World? Akainu said lightly, it was Marshal Sengoku's order. He said that I just became Admiral and need to expand my name, so he asked me to go to New World. Go to New World at this time, the Marshal is. Ghost Spider couldn't continue. Well, don't think about it so much. Instead of staying in the headquarters, it is better to go to New World, where we can implement justice more smoothly. Akainu's eyes flashed brightly. He would rather go to the New World days, and he wouldn't want to fight in the home all the time, because not only was his heart tired, but it was also difficult to earn fear points. Garp's fear points alone would not have enough food. Eat. The Ghost Spider said solemnly, I will gather all the private troops in 3 days, and I will never delay the time of departure. I will personally select the other 2,000 soldiers, and there are 5 warships. Akainu said, this time we are probably going to stay in New World for a while. I will first go to see Lasana. This time I definitely can't take her with her. I can only entrust her to the Crane Vice Admiral and send her to the female. The barracks seem to be doing it right. If Lasana is handed over to someone else, he is really worried, but Crane Vice Admiral is different. With her protection in the female barracks, Lasana will definitely not suffer, you can also rest assured. The speed of the Ghost Spider is indeed not slow. It has attracted many people in 3 days. Among them are 2 rear admiral, 2 commodores, and 5 colonel-level officers. Harrington was not planning to join Akainu's private jun, but under the persuasion of the Ghost Spider, he consulted the old boss Sikong again, and finally joined. The 2 rear admiral are Bastiu Rear Admiral and Rockaloa Rear Admiral. Bastiu appeared in Dressrosa in the comics. At that time, the Vice Admiral under the command of Fujitora laughed at the Cutting Dragon, Vice Admiral, but now he is just a Rear Admiral. Rockaloa is a Marine Rear Admiral of a giant race. Later, he also appeared in the Battle of the Top. He played against Oz, but was crushed by Oz, the Marine Giant Vice Admiral. This is only a Marine Rear Admiral now. Donati think that he is weak when he is crushed and defeated by Little Oz. In fact, as a giant, he is absolutely sweeping the ranks against ordinary people. Compared with other generals, he is more fierce. But when dealing with the strong at the same level, I am afraid it will be slightly weak. The 2 commodores are Jonathan and Dolo. Jonathan is a friend Akainu has known for a long time, so after learning Akainu's income, he joined without hesitation. The other commodore, Dolo, is the same as Akainu, who belonged to the Hawk generals. He was the first general-level cadre to vote for Akainu. The remaining 5 colonels were all carefully selected by Ghost Spiders, and then they used Sengoku's orders to force their superiors to release, and they were all elite colonels who had the talent to become generals. That's why they will join Akainu. As the youngest Marine Admiral, Akainu is favored by many people. The Private Army's Vice Admiral already has Ghost Spiders and Harrington. Rear Admiral only has 2, but Akainu did not continue to recruit. He intends to keep the remaining Rear Admiral and Commodore vacancies to encourage his soldiers, as long as their ability is qualified to achieve that position, which will make the soldiers more passionate. Although Pirate World needs to rely on strong combat power in most cases, power is also indispensable, so it is natural to understand some tactics and develop your own power. Especially for ambitious people like Akainu, loyalty is needed. The subordinates, and these people in the private army, are his most important background. In the past few days, Akainu has almost explained all the things he explained, so he can go to New World without worry. Set off. In the port of Naval Headquarters, Akainu stood on the deck of a warship and gave a low cry. Suddenly, the 5 large warships lined up in the harbor were all launched and the horns sounded. After everything was ready, they launched immediately and slowly left the naval headquarters. Sakazuki Admiral went to New World. I don't know if he can get rid of the so-called 4 emperors this time. If it can be done, it will be a great contribution. The Marine soldiers in the harbor looked at the departing fleet with envy. Although it is dangerous to go to New World, the opportunity is also great. Soldiers like them who have been guarding the base of the headquarters will hardly have the opportunity to perform meritorious service in a lifetime. If you want to climb up, you can only get seniority, so they naturally envy those soldiers who can go to New World with Akainu. Sakazuki actually received Harrington under his command. This son is definitely not as reckless as he showed. Sengoku also heard the horn sound of the warship's departure. He sat on a chair and looked at the adjustment orders placed on the table. These were all adjustment orders used by Akainu to mobilize his subordinates. He didn't care about the others, but just looked at Harrington's transfer order. In the eyes of many people in naval headquarters, Akainu is a relatively reckless and impulsive person, but now Sengoku feels that everyone underestimates Akainu. Looking at his recent behaviors, practice makes perfect for the use of strategy and relationship, and there is no jerky at all. Since ascending to the position of Marine Marshal, he has been weakening the influence of Sora on Marine, but Sora eventually forced him to promote Akainu to Admiral, thus losing the opportunity to promote his confidant to become Admiral. Sending Akainu to the New World is also his helpless move. As the youngest Marine Admiral, countless people are very optimistic about Akainu. If he stays at Naval Headquarters, his power will definitely grow stronger and stronger. Now, as the Marine Marshal, it is very difficult for him to completely control Marine. Akainu can actually guess the meaning of Sengoku's move to some extent, but he does not care, because he really has not thought about competing with Sengoku for power. For one thing, Heiya is too young. Although he is already Admiral, Ida is better than Sengoku. Said that his prestige is still too far away. Secondly, he has strict requirements on himself, thinking that the most important thing for him now is to improve his strength, and everything else is not important. Even if he took over the Marine Admiral, it was not entirely because of ambition, but because of the convenience and benefits that Marine Admiral brought to him. At least he would not be constrained as before, and he could be more free. After Akainu led 5 super warships to set off from Naval Headquarters, they were seen by many people on the way, and then quickly spread. When many pirate forces heard Marine Admiral dispatched, they all shrank, no dare to come out to fight the autumn wind again. Although Akainu is the newly succeeded Marine Admiral and very young, but who is not a fool, if it were Reina T for Akainu to have two brushes, Marine would make him an admiral. Maybe the pirates of New World could ignore it, but they are in the first half of the Grand Line. The pirate of Duan really didn't have the qualifications to look down on Akainu. This also led to the fact that when Akainu and the others entered the New World all the way, they did not encounter any pirates, but encountered a group of smuggling ships trying to cross the Red Line into the new century. In the face of such smuggling ships, Akainu certainly did not hesitate and ordered someone to stop it. After the other party paid enough benefits, he took these smuggling ships across the Red Line and then in New World. Separate. The benefits received from the smuggling ship, Akainu did not keep a single cent, and all were distributed to the soldiers under his command. Everyone received the same amount. Although the money was not much, it was a pleasant surprise to the thousands of soldiers under his command. It has not been long since they came out of naval headquarters, and they have received extra wages before doing anything. They had never experienced this before. This situation also made the soldiers more concerned about Akainu. Convinced, with such a boss, are you still afraid of not getting rich? I have been complained about embezzling the spoils before, so Akainu will naturally not do that again, but the money is not obtained from the pirates, but additional income, so he has the right to use it casually. As the saying goes, even if you want to do similar things again in the future, you must be secretive, and you cannot reproduce the situation of the last time. After all, this time his expanded private soldiers don't know how many other people's spies were involved. In addition, there are 2,000 soldiers who do not belong to him, and it is difficult to guarantee that no one will deliberately target him. Haha, Sakazuki, congratulations on your promotion to Admiral. Since the withdrawal of the Marine G1 branch from New World, the G5 branch has become the largest Marine branch in New World. Although the previous G1 branch base is still retained, only a few Marines are stationed there. Akainu came to New World this time, and did not go anywhere else, and ran directly to the G5 branch base. After Claude saw Akainu, he laughed happily. Akainu smiled and greeted Claude, and then said, "This time I'm going to trouble you again." Claude said, "What kind of trouble is between you and me? Besides, you are now the youngest admiral in Marine's history, and I have to treat you to it." After the two laughed for a while, Claude said solemnly, "Marshal Sengoku has already sent me a fax and asked me to cooperate with your actions. You can directly give orders if you have any orders. You don't need to be polite." The relationship between the two of them was already very good. Even without Sengoku's order, he would still obey Akainu. What's more, Akainu's rank is now higher than him. Claude first ordered his men to arrange a place for the Marine from afar to station and rest, and then he took Akainu and others to the chamber. In addition to Akainu, the Ghost Spider and Harrington Vice Admiral were also included, and Bastille and Rockaloa took the soldiers and left with Claude's people. Akainu took the lead and said, "This time I came to New World, and I had no other purpose but to target the pirates here. You have been here for so many years, do you have any good suggestions?" When Claude heard the words, his face was solemn, and he said, "Sakazuki, I have to say that you came at an untimely time." "How do I say this?" Akainu raised her brows and asked puzzledly. Harrington and the Ghost Spider below were also quite surprised. Claude said solemnly, "You have just arrived from naval headquarters, so you have not received any news. A few days ago, Charlotte Linlin of the Big Mom pirate group occupied a large part of the New World archipelago, with family members as the unit, covering a large area of a New World, while hoisting the pirate flag, taking the position of 4 emperors, proclaiming independence and self-government." Hiss. Akainu is okay. Both Ghost Spider and Harrington took a breath. They didn't expect that in just a few days, New World would have undergone such drastic changes. If it were other pirate groups, they would also know such expression, but the Big Mom pirate group has always been the most powerful competitor of the 4 emperors pirate group. At this time, it is publicly stated that it must be full of confidence. But they were still more shocked. Claude continued to say, after Charlotte Linlin announced the decision, Kaido followed closely behind, and also led by his beasts pirates. The position of the 4 emperors is independent and autonomous. Is this true? A veteran like Harrington couldn't help being horrified. Claude said solemnly, "It is true. Today's New World can be said to have come to the craziest time of the Great Pirate Era. The position of Whitebeard's 4 emperors has been firmly established, but Big Mom and Kaido are so blatantly self-directed. The position of the 4 emperors has undoubtedly become the target of the public. Numerous pirate forces have taken aim at them, wanting to replace them. Under this situation, do you think it is time for you to come?" "It's really not the time." Harrington couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Akainu was also very surprised. Because of him, New World 4 emperors appeared early. 2 years later, the pirate forces from all sides were fighting endlessly, but in the end, only Whitebeard was able to sit firmly on the position of 4 emperors, but now Big Mom the Pirates and Beasts pirates came at the same time, which undoubtedly completely disrupted the situation in New World. There must be a problem here. Charlotte Linlin and Kaido show their fangs at the same time. How can there be such a coincidence? The Ghost Spider suddenly said. Several other people present nodded in agreement, and the two of them acted in the same way. If there is no problem, then there is a ghost. They don't understand the relationship, but Akainu understands a little bit, because Charlotte Linlin and Kaido are old acquaintances. They are both pirates of a large pirate group. After the pirate group was defeated by Garp, they developed separately. Now they have launched actions one after another. It is estimated that it is a decision after discussion, because if only one person acts, it will inevitably become a thorn in everyone's eyes. But if 2 people act together, they naturally spread the sight of the rest of the pirates, so that they are all it won't take long for the opportunity to develop, and then we will be able to gain a firm foothold. Really a witty choice. Claude said to Akainu. Sakazuki, now you know the situation in New World. The group of thieves are dancing. If you forcefully intervene at this time, it is very likely that you will become the target of the public. You have to think clearly. Akainu said faintly, it is very dangerous, but it is also an opportunity. There are only 4 positions of 4 emperors. If Charlotte Linlin and Kaido succeed in ascending the thrones, there will only be 1 position left, so as long as the ambitious pirates, we will definitely not let them succeed. If this happens, it will be our chance. Hiss. Claude took a breath and said in surprise, Sakazuki, don't you want to do something against Big Mom pirates and Beasts pirates? Why, can't it? Akainu asked. Claude said quickly. I advise you to think clearly, these 2 pirate groups are not as simple as you think. Oh, how do you say? Akainu came to be interested. His knowledge of these 2 pirate kings only came from memory. In fact, he did not know much about Whitebeard, because in the plot he knew, neither of these 2 pirate kings had a complete understanding. When the outbreak broke out, the forces under their command were all 20 years later. So far, he really didn't know how powerful these 2 people were. Claude said. I have been in New World for 10 years, and I know it very well. Take the New World today, Whitebeard is undoubtedly the #1 pirate, strong and famous. Unlike the other pirates, Madara, so he has a high conviction. Although he has been challenged to become a 4 emperor, he has always been very stable. But even Whitebeard can't be said to be truly proud of New World, because New World has many big pirates. In terms of power, it may not be as good as him, but the combat power is not much worse than him. We don't care about the others. Just say Charlotte Linlin and Kaido, these 2 horrors are never under Whitebeard. Go on. Hearing that Claude had such a high evaluation of Charlotte Linlin and Kaido, Akainu was also very surprised, because when he knew the plot in his water bar, everyone's evaluation of the 4 emperors was always Whitebeard's first. The other 3 are relatively close, but Claude will actually say this, which makes him very strange. Whitebeard's greatness is beyond doubt. Sakazuki, you have played against him, you should know better than us, Claude said. Sakazuki nodded, and said, at the beginning, I fought Whitebeard. His power was really terrifying. Even if I am now, he will definitely not be his opponent. How? Do you think Charlotte Linlin and Kaido are as powerful as Whitebeard? Claude said. If only in terms of combat power, the 2 of them are of course not as powerful as Whitebeard, but the reason why I say that they are no longer as powerful as Whitebeard is because although they are not as powerful as Whitebeard, they have ambitions. Much bigger than Whitebeard. Especially Charlotte Linlin's Big Mom pirates. This woman is really terrifying. She founded the Charlotte family based on her blood. The high-level members of the pirates are basically family members. This has also led to the strong cohesion of their pirates, and Charlotte Linlin can be said to be inexperienced and accepts everyone. From her step-by-step, she took a long time to develop the pirates to the top pirates in New World. You can see how terrible this woman is. She is very good at grasping people's hearts and has the means to control people. She is the #1 female pirate in New World. As for the beast Kaido, the legend of this man is even greater than that of Charlotte Linlin. Almost the big pirates in the New World row have been challenged by him. In most cases, they won, and only lost a few games. Fighting. The reason why he is said to be terrifying is that even if he is defeated, no one can kill him. No matter what means, he can't kill him. This guy is simply immortal. He was also defeated by Whitebeard. Even Whitebeard can't kill him. The pirates under his command are all crazy, so Beast's Pirates is the one that the major forces of New World want to provoke the least. But as far as the current situation is concerned, The two of them may not be as good as the Whitebeard pirates, but Whitebeard is not very ambitious. He will only do it when he is challenged. The Akainu trio have been listening carefully to Claudia's explanation. After listening to them, they finally understand why Claude would say that. Whitebeard is better than Charlotte Linlin and Kaido, but he has no ambitions and has a bottom line, so instead not terrible. Charlotte Linlin and Kaido are inferior to Whitebeard in strength, but they are extremely ambitious and their power swells quickly. Once they are firmly established in the position of the four emperors, they may be more difficult to deal with than the Whitebeard pirates. Akainu has a dignified face. To be honest, he has never considered so much before. Because he knows the plot in the countless discussions he has experienced, he subconsciously feels that Whitebeard is currently the strongest pirate, the Whitebeard pirate group. In the future, it will also be the head of the four emperors and the strongest pirate group. But now listening to Claudia's analysis, I think it is very reasonable, because throughout Whitebeard's life, it seems that he did not have any ambitions. Ishin only wanted to be with his relatives, even if it was the subsequent battle on the top. Ace was arrested and went to war because of helplessness. On the other hand, Charlotte Linlin and Kaido, the one who wants to dominate the world, and the other who wants to come to a war that sweeps the world, are all ambitious people. It is no wonder that Kaido is not as powerful as Whitebeard, but the bounty is amazingly high. Because Kaido's thinking is indeed much more dangerous than Whitebeard. If this is the case, shouldn't these two people be eliminated? Ghost Spider said suddenly. Claude said. That said, the problem is that this is New World. These two have become the climate. Unless the naval headquarters is dispatched by the entire army, or the world government is determined to eradicate them, otherwise, there is no such tolerance. Harrington sighed. This is the truth. Don't look at the pirates here in a mess, but if we really act on a large scale, they will definitely go out in unison. After all, there is a Whitebeard there. He also stayed in New World for a long time. He has experienced 3 legendary pirates dominating the New World. The 3 legendary pirates at the time were difficult to destroy, not to mention the 4 emperors that have become the climate now. Claude sighed. You haven't experienced the chaos of the New World in the past 2 years. The 4 emperors' decision you proposed, Sakazuki, really played a big role. It cleared a lot of pirates, but it has gradually manifested itself. If the malpractice comes out, it won't be long before the pirate 4 emperors will gradually rule the New World, and the situation can be described as very tense. That is to say, Claude and Akainu have been friends for so many years, that they dare to say such a thing. Putting it on other people, I definitely dare not say it so bluntly. The situation is not optimistic. Akainu also feels his brain hurts. He is not afraid, but feels that his subordinates are not strong enough. He is full of calculations now. There are only a few people under him. With the addition of the G5 branch, there are more than 10,000 people, 3 vice admiral, and a few rears. Admiral and Commodore don't have much. These look good, but the question is who are his opponents? If the opponent is the Whitebeard pirates, it is no exaggeration to say that they can completely crush them and destroy them all. The Big Mom pirates and Beasts pirates, although they are not as strong as the Whitebeard pirates, they are not vegetarians. Besides, it is Charlotte Linlin and Kaido. Akainu is not sure that they can beat them and cannot beat them. Naturally don't talk about destroying them. But when he came to New World, he didn't want to watch the show, but was going to do a big fight. Why did he get discouraged if he didn't do it yet? What about the 4 emperors of the pirates? Don't say they have not been in this position yet. Even if they are firmly seated, we don't need to be afraid of them. They are strong, but I am not a vegetarian. I can't beat Whitebeard for the time being. But Charlotte Linlin and Kaido, I want to see how capable they are. Akainu is telling the truth. He is really not afraid of Big Mom and Kaido. Charlotte Linlin is the weakest among the 4 emperors later. In the plot, even the 4th gear Luffy has not been crushed and caught. He thinks that it is definitely better than the 4th gear Luffy. Strong. There is no reason to deal with Charlotte Linlin 20 years ago. As for Kaido, although he is known as the strongest singled creature by sea, land and air, his strongest should be defense, and he has been defeated several times in his life, which shows that although his strength is top, he is not the strongest. 20 years ago, he should not be the strongest peak, so Akainu does not think he will be inferior to him. His lava fruit is the top attacking ability of Devil Fruit. Just look at Kaido's strong defense. Or his attack is stronger. And he still has a system of unlimited potential. He is confident that he will become stronger and stronger. He doesn't need to be afraid of anyone at all. What's more, he knows the disadvantages of the 4 Emperors pirate group better than anyone.